You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkiness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the ITMODcast podcast. With me is Brian Young.
God, I love being a turtle!
The Turtle Dork.
Hello, folks.
Yep. And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
Hello.
And Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
And Mouth Dork.
Hello!
And I'm your host, Darren Smith.
Warm. Warmer. Disco.
The Disco Dork. And welcome to the ITMODcast podcast 2017 Dorkies Part 2.
Shots part two. Where's
Yeah.
the air horn?
Right there. There's your air horn. This is our episode that's so epic that it has to be split into two halves.
This is part deux.
Yeah, part deux. And
if you haven't listened to part one, get on that.
Part de Electric Boogaloo.
yes. Before we get into our back half of our top 10 of 2017, we're going to hear from our listeners for a second, real quick.
Yeah, we've got 3 listeners, all posted on our ITMODcast Facebook page.
Go and like it if you haven't yet.
Yes, please do. The first one's from Aaron Crownover. He says that 2017 was a fantastic year for coming-of-age films.
Yay.
Lady Bird, Call Me By Your Name, The Florida Project, Thelma, and even It. I'm sure I'm missing a lot more. All so different, but did an amazing job with kids discovering themselves and finding their place in this world. I hadn't really thought of that theme, but he's absolutely right.
Yeah. Lady Bird was definitely the one that stuck out to me. A couple of Call Me By Your Name I haven't seen, but of course even though it's a genre film that focuses on horror, you could definitely see it as a coming of age film. So yeah, there has been a lot.
Yeah, and your number 6 film, Power Rangers.
Yeah. Like I said, it's
That's a coming of age?
Yeah, it's just like Breakfast Club.
Oh yeah.
It's
just
like Breakfast Club.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah. Good save, Lisa.
And then we have William Hawk.
Shout out to Aaron. Thanks for submitting that, Aaron. Thank you.
Yay.
William Hawk says, I have 3 that are tops this year. Logan, Blade Runner 2049, and Thor Ragnarok.
Why are you hiding behind your microphone, dude?
I know it's all big budget blockbusters, but that's how I roll. Logan brought the comic book genre out of the big explosion realm and gave us a story about family and one of Patrick Stewart's finest performances. Blade Runner 2049 is probably visually the most beautifully epic movie ever.
Yep.
Small but significant roles for Bautista and Jared Leto rounded this out. And Thor Ragnarok was probably the most fun film of 2017.
Yes.
Yeah, Logan. Okay, and then we have Victoria Hearn. She posted on our Facebook page, T2 Train Spotting gets the silver medal for 2017. Okay. I absolutely enjoyed the reunion of all of the lads. It was a nice follow-up to the original film. But it's War for the Planet of the Apes that is my favorite film of 2017 and wins the gold medal. It was spectacular, and the ending to the trilogy was perfect. Excellent film, and Andy Serkis is a genius.
Yes.
I did not see Trainspotting 2.
No, I missed it too. Yeah.
And the reason I missed it was I kept meaning to watch Trainspotting 1. However,
have you
I've seen it.
Okay.
The last time I saw it, I was a teenager,
Gotcha.
and it made me feel like shit. So I've stayed away. And I just wasn't really interested in revisiting that film. And that's also a film that I cannot necessarily watch with Lisa in the room.
No.
Oh.
It is not VS. I just never found the quiet, shadowy moments where I could watch it in secret without her prying eyes.
You've never seen Train Spotting?
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
I have seen Train Spotting. What? I know. I saw it in college, which I think is the proper time to watch Train Spotting, in my opinion. I did have to close my eyes at parts. Yes, the baby on the ceiling. That's pretty scary. But I just remember him like setting up his room for like when he's like detoxing, and he has a trash can and he says vomitus, and he says it in his accent, and it gives me the oogies. I don't like him saying the word vomitus.
The moment I remember from Train Spotting is him whipping off that rubber off of his dick.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
All right, and with that, perfect segue into whatever. Before we get into our top 5 films of 2017, for those of you who may not have listened to the first part, shame on you. We'll do you a favor and do a quick recap. Brian, your number 10 through 6.
All right, so recapping before I get into the bottom bottom half of my list.
Yeah.
10 is War for the Planet of the Apes. 9 was the indie film Gook. 8 for me was the film Mudbound, currently on Netflix. 7 was Colossal, starring Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis. And 6 was a fan favorite, Saban's Power Rangers.
Yeah. I love that you put Saban's in there. That's the title, Brad.
Yes.
Kind of have to, right?
Yeah.
Legal reasons?
For legal reasons. So I guess we're just continuing on with my list. We're doing round robin for the top. Okay, I thought we were just doing.
Nah, Brad said like 18 times.
My bad, man. My bad.
We have Wonder Woman now. We get to speak.
Yay! Oh, Lisa. You're 10 through 6.
My number 10 is The Girl with All the Gifts.
Yes.
My number 9 is Colossal. Yes. My number 8 is War for the Planet of the Apes. Yes. 7 is The Big Sick. And 6 is 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Yes. Do I know how to pick films? I do. Yeah. Those are 5 great films. 5 more great films coming up. And starting with my number 5. Just joking. Brad's turn.
Brad, what do you got?
Number 10, Blade of the Immortal. Number 9, A Ghost Story. Number 8, Brawl in Cell Block 99. Number 7, Colossal. And number 6, Baby Driver.
I have in descending order, starting at 10, Fire and Brimstone, Girls Trip, Blade of the Immortal, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Blade Runner. All right, before we get into our number 5, we're going to take some picks from the listeners.
And so, yes, again, we have a Secret Society of Film Masons alumni.
Yay.
Kern Wheeling, I believe, is a first-time commenter for the ITMODcast.
Thank you. Welcome, Kern.
Kern. He says his number 1 movie was The Killing of a Sacred Deer, mostly because it's rare that I feel like a director has an almost Kubrickian control over every single frame. Definitely helps that I lean towards dark films with complex characters, but I love the dizzying cinematography and score, the emotional, brutal story, and even the off-putting, unnatural dialogue. Even the pacing felt like it was toying with the audience. The first hour is so brooding and mysterious, then the plot is forcefully laid out in a 20-second monologue that hits like a bullet. It was emotionally draining and manipulative in a way I completely appreciate and engage with. Excited to hear this episode. Yay!
That's an interesting and apt comparison, bringing up Kubrick in regards to that film.
I need to see that movie again. Because, I loved The Lobster. And I saw Killing of a Sacred Deer at Fantastic Fest. And completely exhausted, and I really liked it and respected it, but in I think the chemical state that I was in, I was not ready for it. I think I'm ready for a rewatch on that one.
Yeah, that's not the type of film you want to watch after you've already seen 5 movies that day.
Yeah.
Like I was, processing.
I'm looking forward to that rewatch too. Brian, you need to watch that movie. I want to watch Brian watch that movie, if not
Lord.
just for like that.
It's one of those.
I want to watch Brian watch that movie while I'm eating a big plate of spaghetti.
No.
Oh man, you guys are not
until you get
me...
that reference, Brian. Let us know what your number 5 pick of 2017 is. I have no idea what it is.
So my number 5 is a film that I don't want to say it shocked me as far as it being on my list, but it's a movie I was definitely looking forward to coming into the later part of, during award season, and that is The Disaster Artist. Number 5. So it's weird. I know leading up to the release of this film, a lot of people, I've heard a lot of conversations as far as people saying like, oh, do I need to watch The Room before I see The Disaster Artist? And for me, I would say no, but I personally, I went and saw The Room before going to see The Disaster Artist. And I can also say that watching The Room prior to this film and then going into the theater to watch this film, that it definitely enhances your experience of watching this film.
Did you go see The Room in the theater?
No, I saw it on YouTube.
Oh,
at home.
Oh shit.
Yeah, no, I saw it on YouTube at home, and it was an experience. It definitely
That sounds
was.
so lonely.
It was an experience, but going in to watch The Disaster Artist, it definitely enhanced the experience of watching this film, and I loved what James Franco was able to do with the character of Tommy Wiseau. I mean, Tommy Wiseau is kind of like this enigma that you really don't know his backstory, or you don't know what is the real backstory of who this man is and where he came from, where his money comes from, and all these different things.
I love that.
Yeah. And but I love what James Franco does, where the movie is extremely funny, but it never goes to the realm, at least for me, it never goes into the realm of parody. I think he really does have a delicate balance of straddling that line of really having a movie that is extremely funny, but also really paying focus to the story of Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau and their friendship and the making of this film. I love that, even though it does ask the question like, okay, if you are talentless, is this something that you should pursue? And the one thing that I took away from this film is that I found it, even though that, you know, maybe they were kind of in over their heads as far as making this film, I love the fact that their passion drove them to finish this film, and for me, I found that inspiring to see that. I did hear you guys talk about this film one day coming in off air, and I do see a lot of the criticisms as far as like the end and the way that the ending was, where it does kind of truncate the how this film has kind of been revered over the years, and they do kind of truncate that within just that one screening.
Scene. Yeah.
But I do think that was just a directorial choice. I don't necessarily see a problem with that, because I think you still kind of get a point across of what the film ultimately became. But it didn't bother me personally. But I don't know. I really just took to this film, and I really just had just such an enjoyable time watching this. And I love James Franco, because I think this movie and the story of Tommy Wiseau kind of parallels his own creative career, especially as a director, because James Franco as a director hasn't had the best of luck with some of his films. I think a lot of his films have been highly panned and criticized, and so I think there was something inherently that he kind of saw that it was kind of cathartic for him telling this story of Tommy Wiseau. So I think there's just some type of symbiotic relationship that they have just with their own careers, and him being able to pursue this project.
So that's my frustration with the movie. I agree. I think that's what James Franco saw in the Tommy Wiseau story, and that's not the story that I saw or read when I was reading the Greg Sestero book.
Yeah, see, I never read the book.
And I had a total blast watching this movie. I think it's a ton of fun. And it is in my top 25. Actually, no, it just got bumped from my top 25. But it's real close to my top 25 films of the year. But the story I wanted The Room to tell, it doesn't tell. And it is about, it's not never give up on your dreams, that I feel like Franco is telling with this story. It's this weird story of attraction between Sestero and Wiseau that's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
How Sestero was in awe of Wiseau's inability to not be himself. That he was attracted to Wiseau's fearlessness on the stage.
Yeah.
But the end result was a super shitty movie that was produced because Wiseau had a ton of money. So and then the end result is a film that he saw as great, but the world didn't. They saw it as the worst bad movie or the best bad movie, and it became a cult phenomenon. And it's really strange, and it had to have been like the years that Wiseau was dealing with the final reception to his film. That's what I really want to know. That's the story I really want to see.
Oh, I see. So the back half of that, the turning point of how people started to receive that film.
And I think there's a lot of ugliness into this story that is glossed over how we respond to that movie versus how we respond to this crazy guy.
Yeah, I think they touch upon a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
As far as like the ugliness with Wiseau and how he treated a lot of his actors and his crew and stuff like that. So I think we do kind of get a glimpse into.
But the ugliness I'm talking about is our fascination with The Room. The ugliness is us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, but that's not the story that
Franco wants to tell. That's why it's not in my top 25. I'm sorry, Brian. I shouldn't take like your number 5 and tell you why I don't like it.
No.
For new listeners, you should go back in the archives and check out our interview with Greg Sestero, because then you will learn that I read the book the best.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And I really impressed him with my knowledge of his life and the book he wrote or co-wrote.
And it's interesting because of that interview that we had with Sestero, and because he was such an interesting guy and a totally open guy, I kind of have fallen in love with him. And
does Lisa know about this?
It's okay. It's fine.
She has.
We haven't opened to actors' marriage.
And I found myself really concerned with the telling of his story and Wiseau's story. And
before seeing it?
Before seeing it, The Disaster Artist, even while watching it, and ultimately as the film has settled in my brain after seeing it. I am interested to revisit it again. And like I said, when I'm watching it, I have a total blast. I think Franco is fascinating to watch. I think Franco's direction of this movie is wonderful. I think the recreations of The Room,
I think
mesmerizing.
Wiseau will forever be a metaphor in my mind as an artist going like, am I Wiseauing it right now? To make any kind of art, you have to be ready to be a clown. And am I ready? I think that like I think that will forever be in my mind.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, the only roadblocks facing Wiseau making The Room itself was convincing people to join him, and the way he did that was through money. So it's not Ed Wood. He's not Ed Wood.
No,
he's not Roger Corman. He's fucking Tommy Wiseau.
Right. Yeah.
Good pick, Brian. Don't let Brad rain on your parade.
Oh no! I love the movie. No, my last point was just like there's a reason why this movie has stayed the test of time. Because Franco even said in the interview, like there's so many bad movies that are made that people will never see or never even know that have ever been made. Why this one? And I think there's something to that.
I have an answer. Paul Rudd. That's why.
Paul Rudd?
Paul Rudd. He saw the film and he turned it into a phenomenon by hosting parties.
Yeah, I think the ritual connected to it. But I also think that there is a weird charisma to Wiseau.
Yeah.
I think that he has charisma. I think that Greg Sestero has kind of a muted charisma himself. I think that there is something magical about The Room.
Yeah.
Just as this enigma.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't believe Lisa, watch Birdemic, Shock and Terror. Leave Tommy alone. Fuck, he is not that bad. The Room is not that bad. Lisa, your number 5.
My number 5 is I anticipate being on a lot of your lists. and it is Get Out. Get Out is an amazing movie. I think this is the movie I went back to the theater the most to see. I'm not a horror person, but I do like a psychological thriller, and I do like social commentary and the close examination of social interaction, and this movie goes into some insidious, dark places, and even on that first watch, you get the sense that Jordan Peele has folded so much into this film that, and into these characters and into each shot of the film. It has this composed density where you just know you missed shit. So it was one of those where Brad and I went back to see it more or less immediately. And then I had one of those things where I'm just like, I need to go to the movies, and I need to go to the movies now. And what's playing? Get Out. So I ended up seeing it 3 or 4 times in the theater. And then I've seen it at home now at least 2 more times. So I've seen it a mess of times. Yeah. And each time I see it, I can't help but be in awe of everybody involved in this film.
And we watched the film before you guys came over today with the commentary track on for the first time.
Okay. And dude, I mean, it's not an illusion. Jordan Peele has thought about everything, the meaning behind everything, from the opening shot where he's putting the shaving cream on his face, to the woman checking out his butt in the corner of the screen. Like, he's pointing out all of these things.
It's one of the best recent director's commentaries I've listened to.
Did you watch the director commentary?
I haven't listened to it yet, but I can just imagine. Like
it is wall to wall talking. He does not shut the fuck up about his movie.
It's awesome.
He's in love with it, and it's amazing.
Even with the opening shot where you're looking at the shot where it's the woods, and it's like driving past, and that is almost reminiscent to the idea of being hypnotic, or him being hypnotized, and you hear that Swahili song and everything like.
And the other thing is, he is such a film freak, right? So the reason the lettering is that way is because he loves The Shining, and he just stole the lettering from The Shining. There are so many references in Get Out, and like Elisa said, like every little.
I mean,
element.
So I think that level of consideration, just translates just so completely. He is so thoughtful, and I've had kind of like a mixed relationship. Let's go back to like Key and Peele. Brad went through this phase where he was just watching Key and Peele.
You mean when I watch every episode in a span of like 2 days?
And the thing is, I would come home and I'm just like, I cannot watch Key and Peele sketches one after the other because I found them too sad. Like the one where the rapper has the hype man and he takes it out to the lake. Yeah. I wept. Yeah. I have the ability to empathize immediately. So to me, I'm not watching like, oh, what a funny concept they're constructing. I'm going like, this affects me.
But that's amazing about their comedy is like how they can bring in that dark realism into their comedy.
Absolutely. And then in the construction of this story, where the twists and turns of the plot reveal themselves like punchlines, where they're just coming out of left field. I think that there is something to a comedian or a comic writer has the ability to manipulate emotions and read a room, read an audience, where that skill is honed to the point where they can anticipate, is the audience going to go left or go right? Is the audience like he talks about that final moment where the vehicle pulls up with the lights, and he talks about how going like, okay, I put this, and I anticipate the audience thinking this, and so they're going to feel this way when it is that.
Yes.
Like it goes to that degree of, okay, I'm setting this up to get this emotional reaction, which will be then undercut by this emotional reaction throughout the film. I mean, the craftsmanship in this film, and to me, like even like talking about the craftsmanship almost undermined the emotional impact of this movie, because it is menacing, it is moving. Like to me, the performance of Daniel Kaluuya as our main character, as Chris.
Yes.
He is so subtle and so brilliant. If you like, you just have to like watch his eyes the entire film. You're just watching his calculation, watching him going like reading a room and deciding, okay, you can see through the layers of he's thinking this and saying that. You really find yourself putting yourself in his shoes, going like, I see how he feels and now I feel that, you know? And that was so imperative to this film, because this film is a film about being an outsider and being a black man, which many of us do not have an experience with. And so having this window of a human being playing this character so emotionally open, it was just imperative to getting the full context of this film. Also, the brilliance that is Allison Williams, the ability to play two characters, and Jordan Peele talks about this a lot in the director commentary about how they would have different names. They had different names for the different Roses. Rose is, you know, Chris's girlfriend, the girl he has gotten to know, and then the evil one is Ro. And the character, the emotional impact of the character is her psychotic ability to compartmentalize these two people so that they both speak equally real. Yeah. And it comes down to that scene where she's on the phone and she's got Ro's composition and Rose's voice.
Talking to Rod.
Oh, so scary. So scary. And Rod. He is my personal hero. I love him as a character. I think he is so funny, but I also think, he's there as kind of like, the vocalization of the audience.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Have you watched any of his stand-up?
No. Okay. I have not, and I look forward to doing it. And Jordan Peele worships all of his actors. He's really pleased with his cast. Caleb Landry Jones as Jeremy Armitage.
That dude is becoming one of my favorite character actors.
I mean, this year,
3 Billboards made it.
3
Tom
Billboards
Cruise movie.
American Made, and the Florida Project.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
His eyes always look like he's about to cry.
He was.
I think he's got a fucking condition.
He was menacing in this movie.
Gosh.
Oh, that scene at dinner.
At the dinner table, man.
Talking about jujitsu, I'm just like, oh my god.
It's wild. And talking about the script, and this movie's gonna come up again later. But man, just like the hints that he drops in the script that pay off so brilliantly. Just in casual conversation. So like when the father is walking Chris around the house and they go into the kitchen, he just says almost this throwaway line, but it's so impactful where he's like, the kitchen was like my mother's area. We always try to keep a piece of her in there, and then we cut and we see the maid in the kitchen.
Yeah.
No,
and she's waiting for him, right? And so in the commentary track at that moment, Jordan Peele's like, this is his shining moment where the 2 dead twins are in the corridor, right? That there's something super menacing about people waiting for you before you get there. And so those are the twins. It's also Hannibal Lecter waiting for Clarice to walk into his cell. And there's Georgina,
And Georgina's performance... the one with the tear.
Oh my god!
No.
Yeah.
Oh god! This movie is so scary. It's a
number
scary...
5, Lisa.
No, here's what it comes down to. it's not my genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love a psychological thriller. Yeah. This is a completely brilliant film, but does this align with how Lisa wants to feel? Is this my favorite emotion? No. But I cannot deny it's like 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. That's not how I want to feel. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I love this movie. I became like addicted to these characters. I want to know everything about these characters. Yeah. You know? So like my 4 to 1, these are movies that, you put the elements together. It's just like a bingo of the things that Lisa likes. Yeah. But this movie was unexpected for me in terms of how much it's how much I just love it so much. Yeah. Like it's the fact that it can, transcend like, my biases against the genre, like my fears and reservations about feeling yucky on the inside. Yeah. I just love it. And I think it's got a lot of heart. Mm-hmm. I think it's got a lot of message and I cannot wait for whatever Jordan Peele goes next. I'm like insta fan. Yes. Insta fan.
Yes. Well, again, going back to his commentary track, he says, he's like, now look, I love this movie. I think I'm super proud of this. I think I made an amazing film. Please don't hold it against me when I suck on the next one.
Yeah, like he has that realization like on the track where he's like watching his own movie and goes, "Oh fuck, this was so good. I don't know what I'm gonna do."
Yeah. And I love this film came out in February. Yeah, and I thought it was gonna come out. It's a phenomenon. And we were going to forget about it come award season. Like this, I never thought this was going to be a movie that we'd be talking about with the Writers Guild, the Producers Guild, the Academy Awards, the New York Film and Critics Circle. But it stayed. Mm-hmm. And not only has the script stayed, but the direction stayed. The film itself, the Daniel Kaluuya's performance. They're like...
People are remembering this film.
There's a chance here that this is a Best Picture winner.
Which follows in the footsteps of Silence of the Lambs that came out in February of that year and almost swept the Oscars.
I think the fact that he went so deep into creating these layers of understanding in composing this story, that it's sticky. It sticks with you.
Have you seen online the author to narrative did I can't remember what her college class was, racial horror? She did a classroom, a month's worth of it, and Jordan Peele came to the class and taught her class.
Really? Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like there is, layers. There is depth. There is a meal to be had with this film.
Yeah.
Every time you sit down to watch it.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And yes, Lisa, it does make you feel awful at times, but to me, it's also an incredibly exciting movie. Mm-hmm. And it excites me in a way that, obviously the Twilight Zone it excited me. The way that the Planet of the Apes franchise, the way that Star Trek excites me. That social science fiction, that social horror, that's so rare and so hard to pull off. Mm-hmm. Shit, we've been talking about this movie a lot. Number 5, Lisa?
It's okay, Lisa. It's not on my list at all.
What?
Oh,
yeah. Brad, your number 5.
So before I say what my number 5 is, I just want to make it known that over the last couple of days, each one of these movies from 5 to 1 has occupied my number 1 spot. Unlike any other year, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying in the Dorkies Part 1, this year has delivered some just gems, but very Brad movies. And this is where the 5 has settled. And I don't see my number 1 changing anytime soon, but 5, 4, 3, 2 could be in any number next week, tomorrow.
Same.
Cool.
So it's Logan.
No, it's not. It's not Logan.
Sorry, William.
Not Logan.
It's 4. I'm sorry. Go.
It is War for the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
Closing out the trilogy, the best cinematic trilogy ever. Sorry, Star Wars. Sorry, Godfather. Sorry, Lord of the Rings. War for the Planet of the Apes seals the deal on this being the best. And it's because, Rise was a good movie. Yeah. Dawn, I thought, was a pretty damn great movie and made my top 10 list that year. I think it was number 6 on its release year. But War, because of the success of Rise and Dawn, Matt Reeves was finally allowed to put Caesar as the main character of the movie.
Yeah, no sides like Jason Clarke or James Franco.
Right.
Yeah.
And, the Planet of the Apes franchise has always been, like with Get Out, has been this social science fiction exploration of the human woes, the societal problems that we face. Yeah. And the previous films have tackled religion, racism, the economic crisis. But this new trilogy has been something different. It's Caesar's story. It's committing to what makes a human. What is life? What is sentience? It is a story of the fear of the other.
Okay.
And it's a story of the hero. Ultimately, what War for the Planet of the Apes is the struggle for Caesar's soul. When he loses members of his family, he is not the great ape, and he has these angels on his shoulders. He's got Maurice and Rocket, but he also has Kobo, and the way Kobo is used in this film, Koba is used in this film to haunt him and to terrify him. That he is succumbing to hatred, that he is becoming no better than a beast through the rage that he is experiencing at the loss of his family, is incredibly heartfelt and painful to watch. And I was not expecting this film to be a personal story. I was expecting it to be War for the Planet of the Apes. And I think some people were disappointed by that fact, that it wasn't all machine guns and spears and apes on horses, that it really, the war that's happening in this film is an internal one. And that's everything. That's why this film is as beautiful as it is. And as we talked about on the last episode, at the end of this movie, how are we supposed to feel about our ape savior? When he confronts Woody Harrelson's tyrant, there is a scenario where he goes down and succumbs to his rage. And he's actually given not only a Deus Machina thanks to that landslide, but a Deus Machina because of the simian flu. What would Caesar have done if the Colonel, spoilers, sorry people, you should have seen it already.
True.
If the Colonel didn't have the simian flu.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
So I think when the sun sets on these 3 movies, you totally understand Caesar from your own human experiences. And it's a tremendous achievement in direction and performance and special effects. It's the true marriage of all of those things to make a superior science fiction film. Sci-fi so often was considered a B movie. And here's everything that genre can do on a high art form. And it's frustrating that it didn't have the success that Rise or Dawn did.
It didn't?
No.
Box office wise?
Box office wise, it didn't connect the way that the previous 2 films did. I think this was a tough summer.
It was.
And
what month did that come out?
July 14th, right in the middle of July.
So Wonder Woman was June, but Wonder Woman was picking up steam.
It was a
all
week,
through
week
June
after
and July.
week after Spider-Man, week before Dunkirk.
Yeah. So I think give it time. The Caesar trilogy will be watched forever.
Oh yeah.
All right, good pick. My number 5 is a film that, where did I see this? Did I see this at, I think I caught this at Lost Weekend. This was a late addition to my top 10 list. And but it is Brigsby Bear.
Oh yeah.
It's a film that I think I heard about it before Lost Weekend. I might have heard just the name, or not even. I can't even say that I was aware of a buzz, but I just maybe heard the name, hadn't caught a trailer or anything like that. So I almost went in blind with Brigsby Bear. No expectations, but even watching that film, especially in the beginning, was not expecting the emotional gift that I would be given by the end of that film. And, you know, making a determination on where to put this on my list, on a list that should have War for the Planet of the Apes or even Get Out. Again, I had to go back. You know, my litmus test is my emotional relationship with the film. And, you know, Kyle Mooney's, you know, performance in the context of this story, but even the story itself, you know, it's this kid who is, you know, he's brought up in this artificial world created for him, and there is this artificial television show, Brigsby Bear, created for him, and he lives, learns, and his life based on these things. But when, you know, his life changes and he is introduced to the quote unquote the real world, you know, all the things that could be looked at as bad and unfortunate, the events that led up to this moment, those come into play into how he lives and affects everyone else in the real world. And I like that. I like that idea of the things that we go through can either destroy us or they can be used to inform how we live the rest of our lives and how we affect others, how we view new things. And, you know, and then on top of that, it has, you know, the filmmaking aspect in it where, and I don't mean the filmmaking of Brigsby Bear, but I mean when he decides he wants to recreate that show. So you have, you know, this do-it-yourself spirit of, you know, we had the, you know, the spirit of inspiration, like you know, Brian, what you were touched by, and the disaster artist. You know, we see this guy who he just wants to make the thing that he loves, and if it can't be given to him like it used to be, he'll make it himself. And I love that idea. But I also love the humanity in his character, and I love how the people who are introduced to his life in the real world, his new friends, and how they're accepting of him, how they enable him, and you know, for me that resonates with, you know, my close friends and people who say, Darren, you can do it, or, you know, I propose an idea, Brad will say, all right, cool, let's do it, and you should do it, Darren, or I get support from you all. So like those things like resonate closely with me, and then, you know, me having my own aspirations like regarding creating things like that. And so I don't know, like all those things just, you know, made for a surprising viewing experience. And we get a great performance by Mark Hamill. Everyone in the film is great, you know, whether it be Jane Addams, Greg Kinnear is freaking great in it.
Oh my God.
And I don't know. There's this sense of whimsy to it, especially when it comes to like the Brigsby Bear portion of the film. But also there's just this hopefulness in it, and a kindness, and you know, when we watch, as you would know if you listen to the podcast or talk to any one of us, and you can tell from our Dorkies, but we watch a huge swath of films that cross many genre, that touch on many different tones. And in 2017, as Brad mentioned in the opening of our part one of our Dorkies, I mean, we had a year where, you know, you would not be blamed for wanting to retreat into the confines and the comfort of a dark auditorium for some escapism. And Brigsby Bear was a film that was a nice cinematic whoopee or a little of a bear, comforting bear that offered you some respite from the shit show that is our, you know, 2017 real world lives. And so like in hindsight, like I appreciated that so much, a lot more than I realized. You know, this is a film that I haven't rewatched yet. I do want to own it. I think it's out on home video.
Yeah,
I got it.
I have it on Blu-ray.
Yeah. And
it's really
I'm dying to rewatch it. It's even just talking about it now. It's one of those situations where I'm thinking about different aspects of the film and the performances, and also thinking back on my feeling sitting in that seat in that theater and how warm and how that movie emotionally just washed over me. And again, this is the hopefulness. That's the thing I feel, the happiness and the just the kindness that the human beings in the film were showing to each other.
And the struggle too, though, to understand.
But yeah, and the struggle to understand. But within that struggle, the hopefulness of coming out the other side of that because of the kindness of others. And I don't know, like I needed that. Like I needed that in 2017.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I took away from watching this film is like the movie never feels condescending or it never feels cynical, because even with the one character, which was the I think it may have been the boyfriend or the friend of the sister.
Yeah.
And how he really just kind of took to, I forget the guy's name.
Who, Brigsby? Oh, James?
James.
Yeah.
Yeah, how he really kind of took to him.
Oh, Spencer. The one who had the camera. Yeah.
Because I mean, he could have came off as really kind of like this dickish character, not knowing who, especially at the party scene. But he really kind of like comes around. He's like, "Oh, you're into this?" He's like,
he wasn't too cool or too.
Yeah. Oh, he was. And he told him about Brigsby Bear. He's like, "Oh, I like to check some episodes out." And I was just like, "Man, that's so like you."
It's creating the myth that millennials are nice.
Yeah, yeah.
They're nice and open people.
Yeah, but I didn't expect that character to really go in a direction like that, and I found that refreshing. Yep. And like you say, just the kindness of others to really just kind of support James in wanting to recreate this show, and it just, I don't know, it was just a feel good film.
Yep. Yeah, and Spencer didn't feel the pressure. Like his family felt this pressure to put James in this box right away, and Spencer didn't have that box.
Yeah,
he didn't have any expectations for James.
Yep.
And the thing I would say about Mark Hamill, he does not have much in this film to do, but what he does have, he is superb in. Mm-hmm. And you look at his work here, and you look at what he did with Luke in The Last Jedi, and it makes me ache for more live action Mark Hamill performances. Yeah. Give this guy some movies.
Yeah, he kills it in the voiceover work.
Sure.
He's doing wonderful work in that arena. But as you just mentioned with The Last Jedi and his small stuff, his small contributions to Brigsby Bear, you're right. Like he does deserve more live action roles, because I mean the man is extremely talented. He's infinitely more than just Luke Skywalker and the Joker.
Yeah, I've been rewatching the animated series. It's on Prime now.
Yep.
And so I've just started from the beginning.
On Amazon Prime?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. And like, man, his Joker work, I mean, that is the Joker.
Yeah.
That's the Joker.
Nice.
Rewatch that. That's my number 5. Let's see, what do we have from our listeners?
All right, so number 4. This comes from Liz Reed, our pal.
Yay. At Cuddles and Reed.
I miss you, Liz.
The host of the People I Think Are Cool podcast. If you haven't listened to that, check that out. Her number 1 film of 2017 is a memorable one. It is Pincushion.
Oh, I did not see that one.
You didn't see Pincushion at Fantastic Fest? Holy shit, man.
Is it a...
well, let's get to Liz first.
Okay.
She says, I laughed, cried, and fell instantly in love with Deborah Hayward and her work. You have to see her shorts in Vimeo.
Oh.
The film is winning awards across Europe. I see her as one of the names to watch. You hear about so many male auteurs and never enough about female auteurs. Deborah does it all, folks. And Deborah Hayward was on Liz's People I Think Are Cool podcast.
Whoa.
It's a fascinating listen. I'd highly recommend checking the episode out. And Pincushion is a really well-made movie. It's a really good movie. It made me feel like shit. I wanted to kill myself at the end of it.
Oh.
Yeah, I never want to see it again because I was so fucking sad at the end of Pincushion.
Damn. Okay.
But what do I know? Lisa, you saw Pincushion.
Oh God, you're gonna call me out. I never want to feel like that again.
Oh shit.
I never want to feel like that again.
Jesus.
It's a movie that is really just all of the worst parts and the scariest parts about being a girl.
Oh.
and it feels extremely personal when you're watching it.
Yeah.
You know, every girl is going to have adjacent or parallel experiences that feel awful, and like it was just emotional shit I did not want dredged up.
Wow.
And like watching it in a theater with males, I'm like, I'm not okay with you guys seeing this.
Yeah, we watched it with all our film school rejects buddies.
And I was just like a mess, and I was like, fuck this movie. That does not, like, and I agree with everything that Liz says, but and it's an amazing movie, well done. And I hated it. I hated feeling like that. I hated it. Like, it ruined my day. It ruined part of my next day. I didn't want to see people, which is terrible at Fantastic Fest because they are fucking everywhere. Yeah. Like, honestly, it was just too much.
Soul crushing.
It's just too much. And I love Liz, and I never want to talk about this movie with you. I love you. I can't. I'm seeing her later this month. I love you. I can't. It's too much. It's too much.
All right. I don't know if I should watch the mother.
I mean, Darren and Brian, I'd be curious to get your point of view on it.
But don't talk to me about it.
Okay, all right.
All right. I'm going to have to work up to that one.
Man.
I think you'll start your period if you watch it.
Oh,
Brad's
shit.
out of his period. He's a woman now. It's horrible.
Man. Okay.
Make my ovaries drop. Let's do it. Brian, you're number 5.
Man, no.
I'm sorry, 4.
4. So I don't think my number 4 is that divisive. My number 4 is a film that I just absolutely adored. I adore just going into this world and being into this world. It is an animated movie. It is Coco.
Yay! I'm so glad.
Yes, Coco was just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we talked about Pixar before, and again, we talk about. We talked about representation. I love the fact that Disney and Pixar have really kind of been in the forefront of like being progressive in that area. We saw it last year with Moana, and now we're doing it again. Yeah, oh God, man, Moana's so good. The music. Anyway. Great soundtrack, but we see it again now with Coco, with them going into like the Day of the Dead and really getting into Mexican and Latin culture and telling the story and the way they're able to really kind of build out the world of the Day of the Dead, where you see the world of the living and the world of the dead, and how it plays almost like this kind of like amusement park when you're crossing the bridge and you have to go through the turnstiles and you have to put your face to the picture to make sure that they have your picture on the Alfreda. I love the way they build this world out. And then once you get into the story, I just love how the story really just focuses on music and family and how music binds us through the generations. It's just a beautifully, beautifully told story. And then just the character of Coco, and like I said, just the generational connection that they have and how she can connect to her father through her great grandson. I just think it's just in the beautifully and emotional moment that you get in the final scene or one of the final scenes in this film. I dare you not to be in a puddle at that moment when you see Coco's face light up. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this film, but when you see her face light up when her great grandson comes in and sings that song that reminds her of her father at 90 years old. I mean, it's just such a beautiful story. I absolutely love this movie. Absolutely love this movie.
Yay.
All right, good pick. Lisa, your number 4. That rhymed.
As I'm looking at, I have all of my windows open for my 4 to 1, there is a definite theme that goes through all of these films that is so freaking obvious.
Are you going to say it or can we guess it?
No, I'll say it at the end, I'm sure, but you'll be able to get, it's like so blatant. It's like such a Lisa move.
4 through 1, not 5 through 1.
Well, what did I say? My 4 through 1.
4 through 1.
My 4 through 1.
Right.
Not my 5.
See if I can guess it.
Okay. So, my number 4 is my first and only MCU movie on this list this year, and it is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I have been very open about my love of the Guardians. They are my favorite group of the Avengers. The first film was really about getting these misfits together and creating this team with Star-Lord, with Peter Quill at the center, and with the soundtrack created by his mother, speaking to him and to the entire universe through the music of Earth, the music of the 70s. And in the first film, I just absolutely loved it. I mean, I love music. I love the comedy of it. I love the vulnerability of all of these characters. They're so fallible and funny and just doing the best that they can, and they stumble into saving the galaxy, which is amazing. And what I love about this next film is it's an extremely personal journey. It's so localized. Yeah, there's this idea that Ego has these, flowers that are going to spit the goo all over everything and ruin the universe. But really, it's about Chris Pratt, about Peter Quill, played by Chris Pratt, connecting with his true family and figuring out who his family really is and how he connects to other people in the universe, and kind of filling this gap in his heart that was his dad, this mysterious guy from outer space that his mother spoke of on her deathbed so reverently, the man made of light. So for me, this film had to be this, because these characters are so flawed and so weak that you could not go from the first film to them being an Infinity War. They just would not be ready. They would not have they would not be as solid as a team, and they would not have the emotional fortitude to make it through facing Thanos face to face. So they have some emotional leaps they need to make before they're ready to do something like that. And so I loved the story of Chris Pratt and of Peter Quill and Ego. At first it seems to be like this sweet father and son story, and they're connecting and they're creating matter and playing catch and connecting through music with the song Brandy. And then Ego takes this turn, right? And Ego is not the father that Peter Quill needs or wants. And then there is Gamora, who is at odds with her sister Nebula. They've always been combative, and she's always felt like she's been trying to shed her connections to Thanos, and Nebula is very proud of her connections to Thanos, and so they had some resolution to find there. I think that in terms of Rocket and Groot, I think that there's still more in that story there, but we see some healing on Rocket. Rocket is particularly with his interactions with Yondu, and seeing how Yondu seeing himself in Rocket and going like, this is the path to loneliness. Yondu has lost his son. He has lost Peter because of his selfishness and pushing people away and being a crotchety asshole. And Rocket has to decide, is that what I want to become? Am I going to continue to keep up this persona? And then, Groot's a baby, and, babies are useless against Thanos. So he has a lot of growth to do, just botany-wise. So
I love when you rewatch this film and you pay attention to Baby Groot and his relationship with Drax, and where he is at the beginning with Drax, and where does he end up with Drax at the end? It's there's an arc there too.
Yeah, and also with Drax, because Drax in the first film, he's a guy bent on revenge, and in the second film, he's he
seems less consumed with that.
Yeah, he's ready to reach out and kind of maybe start a new fam. maybe with Mantis. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. What
He doesn't
Pretty
like her
Babies-
that way though. She's super ugly.
Yeah, but she's beautiful on the inside.
Yeah.
So.
This movie, it definitely. I remember we did our review cast.
Yeah,
and,
so fun.
And it took me a while to really come around because the original time I saw this film, and I definitely wanted to talk about this because it's my number 11. It didn't make my top 10, but I definitely wanted to talk about this film that. I was coming from the angle that, like, okay, yeah, I didn't really get into it because the plot doesn't really get into effect until literally the third act, and you're really just kind of spending time with these characters. And I saw it again for the second time, and I've rewatched it a couple of times on Blu-ray. And I just like what you're saying, Lisa. Like, I think that is what's great about the film is the fact that we do just take our time just to spend time with these characters. And there's just some great and beautiful moments between all these characters. Like I said, with Rocket and Yondu, and then the ending, how we end on Rocket's face with his reaction to the funeral of Yondu. Dealing with the sister relationship between Gamora and Nebula. I mean, that really hit home for me in a couple of moments when you see Nebula tell her sister like how she's always felt like she was better than her. And at the end when she grabs her arm and then like Nebula kind of bucks at her, and then Gamora like hugs her, just embraces her. I just think that's just extremely powerful. And then there was Drax and Mantis, like when they're sitting on the steps and he's looking out into just that beautiful vista, and like she puts her hand on him because she can read like what he's thinking. And then, like, her reaction to, like...
The sorrow he's carrying.
The sorrow that he's carrying. But you never see that through Drax's face or his interactions. But knowing that just through her reaction to that, and just in that moment seeing him just looking out, and us knowing what happened to his family, and his family being killed, these are just such great, intimate, and impactful moments. That's just beautifully done by James Cameron. James Gunn. I'm sorry, but it's just such a beautiful film.
I agree, and now I think that they're ready.
Yeah.
You know, when we see them next to, you know, Captain America and the Black Panther,
Yes,
and all of that wonderful stuff, I think that they can now stand up. You know, they're no longer these misfits. I think that. They've healed some emotional wounds and they're ready for battle. I think for a big story.
They better be.
Oh no! Are they going to be the first to go? Just purple and blue blood everywhere. No.
All right, Brad, your number 4.
My number 4 is The Shape of Water.
thought that would be higher.
We all love Guillermo del Toro on this podcast.
Yes.
And as much as I've enjoyed recent films like Crimson Peak or even Pacific Rim to a degree, none of those American movies have touched the exquisiteness of his Spanish language pictures, The Devil's Backbone, Kronos, Pan's Labyrinth. But The Shape of Water does. You know, I think it is as good as certainly Pan's Labyrinth and Kronos. I think Devil's Backbone is still probably my favorite of his filmography. But, you know, like, I had super high hopes for this film. But I was still kind of surprised by how much I liked it and how much it succeeded in telling its story. Of this weird romance between Sally Hawkins's mute cleaning lady and Doug Jones's amphibian man. And the film never gives you an easy out on their romance, their relationship. He is a fish man. He's not Disney's The Beast, this adorable furry.
A human trapped in a fish body.
Yeah, he's not Dan Stevens under CGI. He is a fish man.
Yeah.
With a fish dick.
With Red Rocket. Red Rocket.
Our listeners can't see, but I'm making the hand motion.
Yeah.
But he's a creature who loves Hawkins for who she is, or at least that's how she sees it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never really given inside his brain. You see his interactions and his response towards her. And, you know, he's picked up some sign language. But he is very much the other. But he's an other that kind of acts as a reflection of our own feelings of otherness. We all can relate to Sally Hawkins's profound sense of loneliness, and in her disconnect with the human race. And this film explores that disconnect with all of its characters, from Octavia Spencer's co-worker to Richard Jenkins's illustrator to even Michael Shannon's crazed G-Man. They're all profoundly distant from the rest of the world. And they all want to connect in some way, whether it's through the power of positive thinking, or office chit chat, and that struggle for all of them, and how Jenkins, Spencer, and Hawkins come together with the Amphibian Man, and with Michael Stuhlbarg. Oh my God, Michael Stuhlbarg! Humanist scientist. His story is maybe even the most fascinating amongst the whole bunch. But the way that Ocean's 4 come together to break out the Amphibian Man and rescue him from the hell that Michael Shannon's agency is putting this beautiful being through is one of the most heartwarming stories of the year. And the way that Del Toro visualizes all of this, you mentioned how it is a beautiful movie. It is a contender with the work of Rachel Morrison in Mudbound and Roger Deakins with Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. The score, Brian, you talked about it in your top 5 film scores of the year. It's phenomenal. This French cafe dream that wanders over this whole film orally is so delightful, and it is one of those scores that you can listen in the car as you're driving to work. It's the whole piece. The Shape of Water has it all.
Yeah, I mean, and in combination with the cinematography, the production design, and how they use their color palette of the greens and the teals and stuff like that, it's just beautiful. I mean, like I said, just everything from all aspects of the filmmaking is just gorgeous.
And all the themes that Del Toro has been working on in previous films come together in The Shape of Water. And I'm kind of curious, does he revisit these ideas in future projects, or now is he free of them? Can he go off and do something completely different thematically? I don't know. Probably not. But, does it get any better than The Shape of Water? I certainly hope so, but I'm not so sure. It's a pretty great film.
Yeah, it's good. Really good.
All right. Great pick. My number 4 is, we mentioned earlier, I can't remember if it was in the first episode of the Dorkies or if it was in this one, but we talked about one of the listeners noticed the running theme of coming of age films for this year, and he mentioned one of the films.
Yeah, that was Aaron at the start of this episode.
Yeah, start of this episode, and one of the films he mentioned happens to be my number 4, and that is Joachim Trier's Thelma. This is a film like Brimstone and Glory and like Blade of the Immortal that I've not stopped thinking about since Fantastic Fest. It's one that I've been wanting to rewatch, but it's not available yet. But it's one that I didn't need to sit with it to determine my feelings about it. I knew as I was watching it that I loved this film, and I knew as soon as it went off that I dug what I just saw. And it's the story of a girl, of a young lady who I believe she's college age. Mm-hmm. So it's not your typical young woman who gets her first period type of deal, but it is a woman who is discovering her sexuality and wrestling with her feelings because the IMDb says that she's a confused religious girl. She's trying to deny her feelings for a female friend who's in love with her. And that's pretty much the basis as far as the relationship part of it goes. But, dealing with these suppressed feelings awakens a dormant psychokinetic ability that she has, and how that story is told, not necessarily the origins of it, but the beginnings of its manifestation back when she was a baby, and how that's told in flashbacks I found really intriguing and really like unsettling in how that those were manifested, those early scenes when she was a kid and how that was manifested. And so this, the way that the movie plays out, the way it visualizes her feelings, I just found very striking. Like the way that this movie was shot was amazing. I just love the way that it was put together, the script, and just the subject matter and how it was, transcribed. I feel like, when it went off, I said, this is the best X-Men movie ever.
Right, yeah.
I cared about the character. I dug the way the power and her power was translated to the screen, but also just the intimacy and the relationship with her and this girl. I think her name was Anya. I don't know, like there have been several stories this year, Call Me by Your Name, if I'm not mistaken, that deal with people coming to grips with their sexuality, whether it be someone of the opposite sex, and just how to navigate that within yourself, but also in a world where that's not agreed upon by everyone. And so I just felt like this movie did a good job of navigating that, but also doing it in a way visually that I've never seen before. And the fact that this was someone who, outside of dealing with this new element of her sexuality, but also having to deal with the manifestation of these powers, and how that was, how can that can be a metaphor for the awakening of her sexuality. And I thought was really interesting. But I just loved, when I was watching the movie, like I loved watching the movie. Like the lead character Thelma, she's played by Eli Harbo, if I'm not mistaken, and she was amazing in the film. From her, she portrayed a sense of loneliness and isolation on this campus. I mean, she's obviously surrounded by people, but just because of who she was at the time, and also some things that were still at the opening of the film like buried as far as her past. But just because of who she was, she felt alone and isolated within the context of her environment, and also being able to open up and talk to other people. So when she meets Anya, when she sees her for the first time, and she decides to take the first step and talk to her and become friends, and how she opens up, and then again awakening those powers, just how that actor portrayed her and that vulnerability, but also ultimately at the end, taking that vulnerability and using it to harness her strength and her power, I thought was really compelling. And so, like, I don't know, I've been thinking about this film a lot. Like, I really can't wait to go back and rewatch it. But it's one that just stuck with me, from the story to the filmmaking, to the score, and all aspects of it. I really felt like this was a strong film from this director. And this is directed by the gentleman who did Louder Than Bombs, if I'm not mistaken. Who we also we interviewed Devin Druitt. Go back and listen to that episode. But yeah, so I was not expecting anything from this film, but then I definitely wasn't expecting to come away feeling as strongly as I do about it. So I'm so glad I got to see this on the big screen. One of my favorite viewing experiences of the year. But yeah, just we talk about surprises of the year. This is one of them for me, because I was not expecting to love Thelma the way I do. So this is my number 4.
It's interesting. Like, it's got some parallel themes to Colossal, I think.
Yes.
This idea that, like, this girl has these controlling factors in her life, and then she becomes in touch with her own power, and she realizes that she cannot compartmentalize anymore. It's time for her to become self-realized and responsible for her own actions.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Interesting.
If you have an opportunity to check it out, listeners, I highly recommend it. Please do. Brian,
do we have?
I'm sorry. Before we do that, the listeners, what do we got, B?
Our friend Jason Plow,
Yeah.
at Jason_Plow on Twitter, He says, I'm still working on my list, but I think it'll end up being Lady Bird.
Yeah.
Because Greta Gerwig is apparently great at everything she does.
Huh. I've been seeing people post pictures of this actor from Call Me By Your Name. And I just realized that guy is the guy from Lady Bird, right? Like the hipster dude.
Same guy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's great in that movie.
All right. Now, B, your number 3.
So
that also rhymed.
Yes, it did.
All right.
It did. I know about your freestyle skills, man.
You know,
I know.
Disco, baby. You know. All right, let's go.
My number 3 is a documentary, and this is a documentary that I saw at Lost Weekend, and one I was eager to see. It's a film called Step.
Yay!
Step was an amazing documentary, and we had some good. Me, Billy, and Andy had some great conversations after watching this film during opening night of Lost Weekend 8. So basically, this documentary kind of focuses on the first senior class of an all-girls school that's in Baltimore, and it focuses on 3 young ladies, Blessing, Corey, and Taylor. And it really just kind of navigates their lives as they kind of like apply for colleges, just dealing with everyday home family life, and also just dealing with the step team as well, and trying to balance all of those different factions in their lives. But I really enjoyed this film because they focus on a lot of things, especially this film taking place in Baltimore and right off of the heels of Freddie Gray and everything that was going on in Baltimore. You really just see these young women, and it really just more so focuses on them really trying to get into college and seeing these women really just deal with the idea of them not feeling like they are good enough to get into these colleges, whether it be because of where they're from, being from the inner city of Baltimore, whether it's them being a woman or a black woman, and not being able to fit into some of these schools. And one of the characters, Blessing, seeing her story was just so a lot of it was just really hard to watch at times, because you see how intelligent she is, but she just wasn't applying herself in school. She was missing a lot of days from school, but you could see her putting these essays together. She was the one that was creating a lot of these different routines for the STEP team. So she was in the process of going through a bridge program. I think it was like EDU Bridge, and she had a meeting with a couple of these ladies. And one of the characters in this film was their college guidance counselor, and her name was Paula Dofat. And Paula Dofat, I mean, these women need to be commended. These guidance counselors at these schools really need to be commended for the work that goes in to helping these young ladies, like really just helping them get to the next level of their lives. And once Blessing had the interview with these ladies from EDU Bridge, you see Paula Dofat really pleading to these ladies that this is the only chance that she has. If she doesn't get into this program, they don't know what else they have left for her. And as a guidance counselor, for her to really have this connection to her students, I just found emotionally powerful. And we need more people like that to help these young ladies to get out of these situations. And then you have the character of Corey, who is just like, I think she was the valedictorian, and she got into Johns Hopkins University on a full scholarship. And then when you see the sacrifices that her parents gave, because she says in the documentary that there were times with her growing up that they were homeless and she never knew it. Like, her parents always found a way to make a way for her to be successful. And the fact that she got a full ride at Johns Hopkins, and there was a moment she had with her mother where she was like, I didn't think I would get in because I didn't know that they would accept people like me, being a black woman. And it's just such an inspirational story. This is probably one of the most inspirational movies I've seen all year. Just seeing these women being able to defy the odds and actually become more than what people expected of them from the situation that they were in. It's just a profound documentary. I absolutely love this movie. Absolutely love this movie.
All right, still got to check that out. Is it?
It's available. You can rent it. I finally checked it out earlier.
You did see it
in December. It's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, so good.
All right, good pick, Lisa. Your number 3.
My number 3 was my number 1 at Fantastic Fest, and that is Anna and the Apocalypse.
Yes.
I love this movie so much.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating that the soundtrack is not available.
Still?
It's still not available. And
the movie doesn't have a distributor.
the movie is still not
I was
available.
wondering if it's been out. Okay.
Shit.
All right.
So, yeah.
That's nuts. There should be like a bidding war for that one.
I know. It did amazing at Sitges. How do you say that?
Yeah,
Sitges?
you got it.
So I'm sure the distribution is right around the corner.
Yeah.
But in terms of, things that are Lisa movies, it is a zombie movie.
Yep.
It is a story centered around a strong female character who is finding her way in life.
Check.
It is a musical.
Check.
It's amazing. I love this film. It's a Christmas movie.
Check.
There you go. Nice. So, the story, it's directed by John McPhail.
Mm-hmm.
It is a Scottish film, and it's about this girl who is about to graduate high school, and she wants to take a year off to travel before she goes right into university. And her dad, who is a janitor and has been, working, really hard for her future, is not happy with that. And then her best friend, who is also a boy, who is romantically interested, though secretly, in her, also doesn't want her to leave because then she's going to be far away and having adventures away from him. And he does not want that. But it ultimately ends up that nobody has to worry about that shit because a zombie apocalypse happens. And while they're trying to get together their Christmas program at the school. And so, that's what the movie's about. It's amazing.
For the uninitiated, when Lisa says it's a musical, like it's a full-on musical. There's musical numbers.
Yeah, it's a musical. It's like there's like musical numbers and dance numbers. Mm-hmm. And to me, this is how, I think the fact that it is a indie film gives it permission, because there's not going to be any known actors anyway. So it gives the film permission to actually get actual amazing singers and musical actors to do this film. I had a chance, just walking around Fantastic Fest, to talk to some of the actors. I talked to Christopher Laveau, who played Chris. And he talked about how, what a rigorous audition process it was. And so all of these characters, and Ella Hunt plays Anna, Malcolm Cumming plays John. All of these characters are amazing singers and comedic actors, and they all take part in doing the action. It has a definite, it's a comedy, but in the spirit of, I would say it's got a definite Joss Whedon vibe, where the comedy comes from how much you love these characters. And it's not earlier in the year I reviewed Lederhosen Zombies, and the jokes are, puns and cheesy. The jokes here come from what a ridiculous situation this is. What wonderful people these are, just trying to do the best that they can, dealing with the zombie apocalypse, right? Yeah. There's an amazing scene in a bowling alley. A bunch of them hold up in a bowling alley.
Oh, yeah.
And at one point, somebody smashes the head of a zombie using 2 bowling balls. It is pretty great. The violence is pretty fun. A lot of practical effects with the CG finishing, but you can feel the practicality in it. The musical numbers are absolutely beautiful. The music is really quality. I'm trying to look for the names of the composers.
Well, you know how when we first saw Shaun of the Dead and it was labeled this romantic comedy zombie film, and you came out of that and you were like, the comedy works, the zombie works, and the romance works.
Yeah.
Like, what a miracle that those three things work so well on their own.
Yeah.
Same deal with Anna and the Apocalypse. You know, the melodrama of the teen relationships works. The musical numbers are killer.
Absolutely.
And the comedy works.
Yeah, so the composers are Roddy Hart and Tommy Riley. And they didn't just compose the musical numbers that are amazing. They composed all of the incidental music. Mm-hmm. They composed all of the music that was in commercials on their radio. They did everything because it's an indie film and it's cheaper to do that than licensed music. But it creates this continuity throughout the film where it's like, it's grounded realism, but also not because it's a zombie movie. So the musical number I was thinking about was called Human Voice. And it takes place after this fight in the bowling alley where all of the fun of the zombie apocalypse is kind of worn off. And a lot of these characters have been separated from family members and friends. And they are just talking about how isolated we can feel in this smartphone era where we're all texting each other, and then when the shit really hits the fan, all you want to do is just hear your loved ones speak to you, and you just want to connect in that way. There's also a really hilarious musical number performed by the character's name is Lisa, which I love, performed by Marley Sue, where she does this innuendo dense Christmas number for the school show that is so funny. And it reminds me of an actual parallel experience I had when I was I must have been 14 or 15, and we were doing a recital, and I had been working on this piece, this old piece. Let's see if I can find who it was by. But the piece is called I Love a Piano, and it's about how much I love piano numbers. It's by Irving Berlin. So so practicing it, it was like a perfect, innocent little piece. And then it was time for me to sing it. And I decided to put a lounge spin on it. And one of the lyrics is, I know a fine way to treat a Steinway. I love to rub my fingers or the keys, the ivories. I love to meddle. It's like a super dirty song, and my voice teacher just never realized it. So I just love that. And the fact that her name is Lisa. So I just absolutely loved this movie. I became a fan right away. I'm like, I want the action figures. I want the soundtrack. I want everything. And the fact that this film does not have distribution is a crime. The fact that Brian has not seen it is a crime, because Brian is discovering his musical love now as a grown man, and I need to expose him to the best of the best. And I think Anna and the Apocalypse, in terms of being a film musical, is that so good. Cool.
As if Fantastic Fest needed another plug on this show. But, Lisa mentioned talking to some of the actors. She also struck up a nice relationship with the director, John, and has continued that relationship on Twitter. And, we're looking to make it happen, but it does look like he's going to appear on ITMODcast in the
feelers
near future.
are out, so hopefully, maybe, fingers crossed. I'm excited, cool. And because I just need to see this movie again, because the fact that the details are escaping me now, because it's been a while since I've seen it, is breaking my heart, because I love this movie. If you want to. No, you don't have to if you don't want to, but you can go on to aftermoviediner.com and find my review of this film and other films that I saw at Fantastic Fest, including Thelma, if you want to read that too. So, yay, but you don't have to. You can just listen to the podcast.
You actually do have to.
I'm an excellent writer. I'm a way better writer than I am a talker.
All right, great pick, Lisa. That was one of the ones I was like, okay, that's going to be on your list.
Faux show.
Brad, your number 3?
So my top 3 all changed yesterday. They all changed places yesterday.
Been on a journey.
I watched all 3 of them yesterday to determine exactly where they would land. And my number 3 is Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. It was absolutely my favorite theatrical experience. Caught it at the IMAX Udvar-Hazy. I was overwhelmed by its presentation. And I watched it yesterday because it was such a shocking watch in IMAX that I thought, will it lose something on the TV? And in you know, this being the end of the year, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of top 10 lists. And the theme with Dunkirk that I've been seeing over and over again is people saying, like, you know, they don't want to watch it on TV because it will lose its strength. And I can tell you, and I don't have a small television, you know, it's a 75-inch screen.
Monstrosity.
It still plays. And to say that it's only meant for the big screen does a disservice to everything else that's going on in Dunkirk. You know, it is all about immersion. You are dropped into this scenario without any context, and you are asked to catch up on this horror of war. But on rewatch, you know, you understand the mechanics of what's going on. You understand who the characters are, and you discover new things. I am not a Christopher Nolan fanboy by any means. Yes, you know, I love Memento. I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I love The Prestige. But, you know, Interstellar I wasn't crazy about. Inception I like just fine. But he's not like one of those guys where, you know, I idolize the way that I may idolize, I don't know, Edgar Wright or Quentin Tarantino, and I can't shut up about him, or Guillermo del Toro. But with Dunkirk, I feel like this is, you know, he's compared a lot to Stanley Kubrick, but this is the first time where I truly saw that meticulous eye for detail, that Kubrickian precision, as one of our listeners said about another film. I can't even remember which film he was talking about. But I saw it here in Dunkirk. Yeah. It's cinema at its grandest. You know, the 3 timelines, the editing of it, the score, like Hans Zimmer's score. It's not a score like Shape of Water where you want to listen to it in the car. Yeah. It's a score that's totally tied to the film.
Exactly.
And increases the intensity and the enjoyment of the cinematic experience through the music.
Absolutely.
It all comes together to detail this rather ordinary heroism that these men were asked to call to display, and it's not like you know, some John Wayne Green Beret movie. It is about the heroism of survival. You know, like, as the trailer said, it's about living beyond this horror. It's about a nation coming to greet them and bring them back to their shores so that they can fight another day. It's absolutely stunning. And I think the performances are great. I can't stop thinking about Tom Hardy's pilot. You know, you like, what's he saying? It's hard to hear. He's got that mask on. But through his eyes and through the way Nolan tells that aviator's story, like by the end when he, you know, glides down behind enemy lines and fires that flare into his cockpit and waits to be captured. Like, there's just these images have so much emotional impact. They certainly play on your ideas of cinematic war, but then at other times they undercut it, they subvert it. When I saw this in IMAX with Darren and Lisa, I was overcome with emotion. I couldn't speak after the film as the credits were crawling, and I found yesterday when Lisa and I watched it on the couch right behind you, Brian. I again was overcome with emotion for the story of Tom Hardy, for the story of the father, the son, and the neighbor, for the story of Cillian Murphy's coward, quote unquote. For Kenneth Branagh's officer staying behind. It's so beautiful, and it's only a movie could do what Dunkirk does. Like you would not have this experience in a book. You would not have this experience on a TV miniseries. You would not have this experience as a comic book or a painting or a song. This is a movie. It can only be told cinematically. And I think it, as Sean Eastridge said on our part one of our Dorkies, our listener, it is the pinnacle of Christopher Nolan's career. It's the best thing he's done, in my opinion, without a doubt.
All right, cool, great pick. My number 3. I think this one is a late entry, or its placement was late in the game. But it's a film that I seemingly could not shut up about in 2017. And upon rewatch, that was solidified, and that is the Safety Brothers' Good Time. This film stars Robert Pattinson, Benny Safdie, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Barkhad Abdi, a dude named Necro, Talia Webster. But the reason why I keep coming back to this film, not just on the podcast, but in my own personal life and on video, is because ever since I saw it, like the efficiency of the storytelling and the filmmaking, it's a very simple story. Robert Pattinson and Benny Safdie are brothers, the Nikas brothers. Robert Pattinson is Connie. Benny is first name is Nick, so he's Nick Nikas, and it's implied in the opening that Connie looks after Nick, as Nick is he potentially has some type of mental disability, maybe, but so it's just them two. They have a relationship with their grandmother, but it's a strained relationship. It's not a good, possibly abusive even. So in the opening of the film, Connie and Nick are robbing a bank, and Nick is arrested and he's sent to prison. But he's injured, so he's in some medical treatment facility, and then he's going to be transferred to a prison. So the movie is simply Connie on a race against the clock to get the money to get Nick out of jail. But the process to do that, and where Connie goes and where the story goes in order to get this money, is so unexpected. And as I've said on the podcast before, when I've talked about and reviewed the movie, takes so many twists and turns to not necessarily the underbelly of New York, where this film is shot, and it's where the Safety Brothers are from, but a side of New York that is not usually cinematically represented, or at least in this way visually. And I just have become, each time I watch it, I'm just hypnotized by the storytelling, and just by the locations, the visuals, and just by, I use this term all the time, by the odyssey that Connie goes on in this film. And the movie only takes place over the course of, I think it's a night, maybe it's a 24-hour period. And again, it's the efficiency of the storytelling is appreciated, because Nick is in jail. Connie wants to get him out. He feels like because of his brother's condition, he is not fit to be in prison. Like, he will get bad things will happen to him. So he has to act right now to get his brother out. He does not want to wait. So whether that means borrowing, a couple grand from Jennifer Jason Leigh's mother, who I just want to stop and talk about Jennifer Jason Leigh's performance in the film. So most recently, you see her in the trailers for Annihilation. But cinematically, I think the last time we saw her was in Quentin Tarantino's Hateful Eight, which she was astonishing in. And she continues that trend. You know, she's one of these actors that, you know, for me, like some of the performances later in their career is some of their best work. And in this movie, she has a really small part, but you know, a rewatch affords you, like what we talked about earlier, affords you to go in and focus on, you know, a new particular element of the film this go around. And my most recent rewatch, I really had time to look at the you know, the specifics of her performance and the nuance and just her acting and delivery and just the character that she was given, such a small part, but she was able to flesh that character out so well, with as another character who potentially has some type of, you know, personality disorder, and she is just amazing in the film. And then you have, you know, Robert Pattinson, who completely transforms, is enveloped in this role. He is Connie Nikas, and he isn't any other character, whether it be his character from The Rover or Cosmopolitan or any of the Twilight films.
City of Zed.
See, he is Connie Nikas in this film, and he does the best character work in it, and I love it so much that he's able to get past his, you know, his fame and his persona as a star, movie star, and become this character, because you have to, because it's totally told from his perspective. You're with this character from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. I don't think there's a scene there's a scene at the end. There may be like one or two scenes where we're not with him, but for the most part, you're with him the duration of the film. So you have to invest and buy into this character. And, you know, Robert Pattinson does his damnedest to make sure that you're able to do that. Now, whether you sympathize, empathize, or agree with what he's doing, his decisions, and why he's doing it, that's subjective and up to the viewer. But he gives a performance that allows you to want to make that determination on your own. You want to see what he's doing, and the way that the story is told and the uniqueness of it, you don't see what's coming. It's not predictable. I don't know. It was such a surprise, and it is so with the cinematography, with the scoring of the film, and the performance are so energetic and vibrant that it just made for me one of my favorite theatrical viewings of the year. And I got to see it at an advanced screening at the Alamo in their theater A, and it was a knockout film. And so I've seen it again recently. I've watched it like twice on home video now, and that movie still holds up. And Benny Safdie, one of the brothers who directs the film, he stars in the film as well. He is Nick Nikas. He's not in the movie a lot. He's in the beginning and at the end. But I tell you, his character work in this film is so amazing that I thought it was like the thing like when I first saw Leonardo DiCaprio. The first time I saw him was in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. That when I saw him out of character in an interview, I was like, wait, he's not really like he is in Gilbert Grape. Well, that's the same thing with Benny Safdie. I really thought that's how he is and how he talks. When you watch the special features, he's like a normal guy. He tells you how he puts the tongue in the back of his mouth to make that voice and become that character. And it's just amazing character work. And the grounding of that movie hinges on really him, like he and Connie's relationship, but really him. And the beginning of the film and the end of the film with that character has some of the most profound, like, emotional moments in that I've seen this year. And he's just great in it. Brad, you talk about that scene at the end when they're walking across the room, and yeah, like you aren't wrong. Like that is a really strong moment.
It kills me that I did not see it on the big screen.
Oh man.
I'm sure that we will have that opportunity again. I think this
so.
is a film that will play in the repertory theaters.
Mm-hmm.
But, I caught it last month, and it's fantastic. It is in my top 25. It's brilliant.
I'm not familiar with the Safdie brothers, but now, like, I care about what they do next. Like,
you should check out their older film, their last film, I think it was, Heaven Knows What.
Okay.
It's also like an experience. It's not as good as Good Time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they're attached to do a 48 Hours remake?
Yeah.
What's that going to be?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, 48 Hours, the original, will still exist. So there's that, luckily. But I don't think that they could. I mean, I don't see them fucking it up.
No, I think it'll be certainly interesting.
Yeah, at the very least, to say the least. So yeah, that's my number 3. What do we got from our listeners?
Well, this is from Kieran Fisher. He's a fellow Film School Rejects columnist.
Hey.
And his favorite film of the year is Good Time.
Yeah.
He says it's a return to grimy New York City cinema, and the tension is genuinely nail-biting at times. It feels like the cinematic equivalent of a time bomb. It made my neck hairs aroused.
I can agree. I can attest to that. Great pick. Thanks for dropping us a line, Brian. Shit, dude. You already
Final
said,
2.
You already said Power Rangers. King Arthur was on your not top 10, so I have no idea what your number 2 is.
Well, this movie has been mentioned already, and I don't know. I like this movie a lot. It's my number 2, so maybe that just makes me a very, very sad, depressed person. But it's 3 Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. But I agree with everything that you said about this film, Lisa. To me, it's really a focus on, like you say, rage, anger, sadness, regret, remorse, guilt, even compassion and forgiveness, or the lack thereof. And it's really about grief and the pain of that grief and how to really just get over that grief. And you see that throughout the film through all these different characters, through Frances McDormand's character and Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson's characters. It deals with so many complex themes and complex issues, and just dealing with the complicated nature of just human beings and just how we are in general. It also what am I saying? Oh, the score, Carter Burwell. I mean, it's my number 1 score of this year. I think Carter Burwell, who also did the score for True Grit.
A bunch of Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah. And I mean, listening to the music in this movie, it just exemplifies all those feelings and emotions that I had experiencing the journey of these characters. It definitely deals with some of the deepest, darker parts of us as human beings. And like I said, just dealing with those things for better or for worse. I just thought it was just an interesting exploration into just a lot of those different areas with these characters. But yeah, I mean, this movie just hit me in such a, I don't know, such a profound way. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It is definitely a movie I want to revisit. I don't know how how easy it will be for me to kind of watch this film. But I like the tone. I like the comedic moments and how he's able to really go from a lot of those comedic moments and then just kind of cut right into the drama. And you really don't feel like it's not not jarring to me. So I think he really is able to kind of really balance that out pretty well. And I just really enjoyed this film a lot.
I am looking forward to rewatching it. It's another one that I kept meaning to go back to the theater to see.
Yeah.
And then, for whatever reason, I kept finding roadblocks to making that happen. Probably watching another movie instead. But yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I did rewatch Martin McDonagh's previous film, Seven Psychopaths. It's a fucking weird movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
I haven't seen his previous films. Or In Bruges.
Well, you should check In Bruges out. I think you would like In Bruges. Seven Psychopaths is so confusing.
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell, though.
And Christopher Walken.
Yeah, and Woody Harrelson.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Did that?
Yeah. And Tom Waits.
Yeah. And it's really like Sam Rockwell is just so good in just the way. Yeah, and even in this movie, like he's kind of a deplorable character.
Totally.
Yeah. And I don't want to say his character is definitely not redeemable in this movie in any way, but a lot of times you really do. The movie allows you to kind of sympathize with him in some parts of the film, especially when you see his home life with his mother. I don't know. Like sometimes I just feel sorry for him.
You can still feel sorry for someone and them be a complete evil shit, you know. And I think that's something that's hard for people to reckon with sometimes. And the fact that this movie dares to go there, I think, is pretty brave.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people had trouble with, you know, oh God, what's the guy from Get Out's name?
Daniel
Caleb Jones. Caleb Jones.
Oh yeah.
With Caleb Jones's character giving him the orange juice, and seeing that as the film forgiving Sam Rockwell's character, and I don't necessarily think that's what's happening in there. That scene, it's not the film. You can have a character act human and not be a forgiveness,
and that's why I think the movie does kind of it does have compassion for some of these characters, but I don't think the movie lets these characters off the hook.
Yeah. I think it's a very complicated movie for me that I have been struggling with how I feel about the intent of this film, and so I really do. You know, when I walked out of it, I was like, yeah, that's one of my favorite films of the year, and it was on my top 10 for a long time. But in having the conversation with others online and reading other points of view, it did steer itself out of my 10. It's still in my 25, but it's not in my 10 anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Lisa.
Yes.
Your number 2 can be one of...
I know one of them.
There's one. There's another
Yeah,
movie that I know has to be on your list.
I know one of them.
And I don't know if that's this one coming up. So I'm really curious to see what it is. If it's what I think it is, I'm gonna be shocked because I have no idea.
I gotta say, I was a little surprised by the ranking of Lisa's list.
Yeah,
really?
I thought Anna in the Apocalypse would be like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So what's your
Number
number?
3. That is a lot like 1 or 2.
Been a great year.
It has been a great year, and it's been a great year for me because this is the year that Baby Driver came out.
That's your number 2.
Of course, it's my number 2. Let's talk about it.
Surprise 2.
It is a crime film with plot and schemes.
Yes,
it's
you
got
love plot and
a
schemes.
dance number in it.
You love
it's
that.
It's really musical based.
Yeah.
It's got kissing in
and
it.
you love that.
I do love kissing. It's got John Hamm in it.
You love
and
him?
he's got like that cool haircut.
Yeah, I know that is a cool
I
haircut.
like a haircut.
That's my next haircut, Lisa.
And yet it's number 2. There's a
it's number-
movie that trumps this.
So
Yeah.
why
Interesting.
is it? What? I'm so shocked.
So, I love Edgar Wright's films. I'm a huge fan of the Cornetto trilogy. And I think that this film is like a next level for him as a director. I think that this, you know, we know from interviews and stuff that this was an idea that he had been developing for a long time, but there were a lot of technical aspects that were very intimidating. The idea of syncing these, you know, car chases to music is like tremendous, and I think that he just really nailed it with this movie. The character of Baby being this kid who lost his mother and has this tinnitus and acts out by stealing cars and getting wrapped up in this criminal life, and this is the story of his kind of growing out of that phase and kind of facing the music, so to speak. So there are a lot of great performances that Brad has already mentioned. His boyfriend, John Barenthal, loves that guy.
So manly.
I love the pairing of Buddy and Darling.
Yes.
You know, Buddy's first inclination is to parent Baby. Everybody wants to be Baby's mentor because he has this kind of tabula rasa thing with his you know, dark glasses and blank expression that every male that meets him either, you know, hates him or wants to be his dad, you know. Starting with John Barenthal, starting with Griff wanting to show him how rough life was, and then Buddy, who's like, hey, I get you, we both like music, that's awesome. And then of course Kevin Spacey's Doc. What an intimidating character. It's Kevin Spacey since I don't think we're going to see much more out of him as an actor.
No.
But his characterization of Doc was awesome. Just a really scary dude, scary and paternal, and his turn at the end, I think, is really speaks to the criminal mind, the fact that there is something innately, there is a ideology to it, and there is kind of a sense of fairness to it, and the fact that he himself sees his young self in Baby as well. So, and I think that the soundtrack is amazing. It's Edgar Wright clearly put a lot of time into crafting this list of amazing songs that are pop adjacent. You will know songs like them, but you might not necessarily know this list of songs. That opening scene with Bell Bottoms, I just fell in love with that song, and the fact that it was paired with this exhilarating chase scene with the 3 red cars and the shells and the whole thing, and then that being followed by the dance number of Getting the Coffee of Harlem Shuffle with all of the graffiti on the wall. I just think that this movie, talking about with Get Out, we were talking about just the craftsmanship of putting a story like that together. I think a lot of that same consideration was put into putting Baby Driver together, and just the idea of like building a puzzle piece, like everything has to fit together just perfectly, and then on top of that, the film still has to have heart and these amazing characters and performances and everything that speaks to me as a viewer. That makes it my number 2 film of the year. I love it. So fun.
All right. Shit, I don't know what your number 1 is.
Oh, gosh. When you hear it, you're going to be like, duh.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Brad. What haven't you said? You already said... Oh, okay. 1 or 2 movies. Okay. I think I know. All right. What's your number 2?
I know your last 2.
I know
but
Brian.
I know
Brian knows my last 2. Again, a day ago they were flipped. But this film was the biggest surprise of the year for me. I don't even think I was aware of its existence until a week before it came out, or a week before it was programmed at the Lost Weekend number 8.
Okay.
And that's John Carroll Lynch's Lucky, starring the late, great Harry Dean Stanton. Yeah. It's the story of a 90-year-old atheist fully aware that his time is running out, and he's absolutely terrified of the void that awaits him. What was the point of it all? Yeah. In his last days, through various encounters with local townspeople that he sees every day, he pieces together a philosophy that gives him comfort before his end. And, Lisa talking about the puzzle pieces of Baby Driver or Get Out. I think narratively, Lucky is the best puzzle of the year, and like the most satisfying puzzle of the year. What Logan Sparks and Drago Simonio's screenplay does is slowly construct over 88 minutes these meetings. One with Ed Begley Jr.'s doctor, one with Barry Shabaka Henley's diner owner, the various miscreants that he antagonizes at the bar, James Darren, oh my God. And finally, the conversation with this World War II kindred spirit played by Tom Skerritt.
Alien Reunion.
Yeah. Alien Reunion. And, you're watching all these scenes and, it builds to this 10-year-old's birthday party.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, well, this feels really satisfying ending. And then Lucky goes back to the bar and he delivers this final monologue that takes takes an element from every single one of these conversations and builds to the most hopeful and warm monologue like moment in this dying man's life. Like he's ready. You know, his fear has gone, and it's because of he finally connects to all the people who have been around him for God knows how long. I just like. I didn't get to see it at Lost Weekend. You know, we were at Fantastic Fest. Shit, I'm not done plugging it. And I missed it by a day when I joined you guys on Friday night.
Yeah, because it was the first film we saw that Saturday morning.
Yeah.
First,
That's right. So I joined
Saturday.
you. Yeah, Saturday night, I guess.
Yeah.
For my friend Dahmer, and you know, you guys were talking about it. And you're like, oh wow, Brad, you're really gonna like it.
Yeah.
And then I finally caught it by myself with like 4 other people at the Cinema Arts Theater in Fairfax, and I'm watching this film and I'm enjoying it. And I was really surprised by how beautiful the movie was. Yeah. You know, it's John Carroll Lynch's first film. He's an actor that you know from films like Zodiac and Bubble Boy and The Drew Carey Show.
Invitation.
The Invitation, yeah, The Invitation.
Yes.
But you know, so often when the actors turn directors, you know, they're great at capturing performance, but maybe not necessarily the most visual storytellers. But damn, I mean, it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, even when you see him doing yoga in his apartment,
well,
in
it's
his
like
house. Yeah,
how everybody passes through the frame is really, really fascinating and incredibly compelling to watch. David Lynch pops up in this movie, and it's such a Lynch performance. It's so weird and not in the reality of some of these other performances, but it's great. It's great.
His monologue about the tortoise.
Yeah, because you dismiss him because of his style of acting and this relationship that he has with this tortoise.
Yeah.
When he finally like shows why he loves President Roosevelt so damn much, you're like, oh shit. And then again, how Howard's love of President Roosevelt feeds into the philosophy that Lucky is constructing.
Yeah.
You know, how would I feel about this movie if Harry Dean Stanton was still with us? Maybe it would be a little bit different. You know, there's an extra bit of weight, extra bit of loss, knowing that he is gone. And the fact that Harry Dean Stanton really wasn't given these kinds of opportunities too often. You know, besides Lucky, I think the only other film that he was the lead of was Paris, Texas, which is a masterpiece unto itself. And if you haven't seen that, you should check that out. Okay. But usually he's just, you know, a little flavor in a film, like Alien, you know, like Pretty in Pink, or is it 16 Candles?
Pretty in Pink.
Pretty in Pink.
Oh, it's Pretty in Pink. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't tell any of those John Hughes movies apart. You know, he's a phenomenal talent. He had an amazing career, and it's just so awesome that he ended on such a magnificent movie.
Yeah.
You know, all of those actresses who are, you know, posing naked and getting called brave. To me, I think that Harry Dean Stanton doing calisthenics in his underwear was with his old parts was really exceedingly brave.
That's not brave, Lisa. That's I don't give a fuck.
He looks like a human turtle. He is so sweet. I just want to kiss him on his little turtle
But
lips.
like, he is beautiful.
Oh, stunning.
You know, you know,
so soft.
If you listen to this podcast, you know I love old men. But in the pantheon of old man faces, Harry Dean Stanton is the tops.
Oh gosh, because he's had an old man face forever. So beautiful.
And you finally got to watch it. It's now on demand. What did you think?
I loved it. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I think that the moment that he sets the clock on the coffee machine is perfect. And I think like just the message that, you know, you never stop learning. And the potential for you to be a happy person is always within your reach. All you have to do is kind of listen. I think that's a really nice message.
Just got it. Oh, sorry. I just got Lisa's number one. I got it. I was just thinking about it. Okay. I'm not going to say I think I got it.
Oh, I'm going to be looking dead in your eyes when I say it because I want to see if you're right, and I'm not going to let you lie to me.
You better not look away
I'm not.
either.
I'm not.
Look away.
No, I'm not.
All right.
I'm not.
This is going to be the most eye contact Brian and I has ever made.
I know. I just got it.
All right. Don't blink either, fucker.
Okay.
Don't blink. My number 2. Yeah, Brian may not know what it says about him, but I know what it says about me. And it is 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. I was able to catch this one at an advanced screening. No, because when you started, you was like, my number 2, I don't know what this says about me.
Sack.
I'm a sad sack. I ain't no sad sack. I just dig this movie.
I'm doing the bit. Come on,
what's your
man.
bit?
That was it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not a sad sack. I really enjoyed this film. I was able to catch it at an advanced screening, which I got to see it for free, which I would have gladly paid money to see this film. Unfortunately, like Brad, I was not able to go back and rewatch this in the theaters because there were so many movies. I was movie passing the shit out of some films.
So you don't want to pay for movies? Is that what you're saying? With
I
Movie Pass?
I pay that. How much a month?
$9.99.
Yeah.
You're willing to pay $9.99.
Yeah, unless I'm going to like Dolby Prime, then I'm shelling out the dough. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But with this film, you know, I had seen the advertisements. I had seen a trailer, and I don't know that I was necessarily paying attention to any critical reviews or any buzz, but I just knew from the trailer that was a story that felt different to me, and I loved Frances McDormand's what little of her performance that was in the trailer. So I was very intrigued. So I go watch the film, and I was surprised by the tone of it. But more importantly, I don't think that there was a stronger, for me, that I've seen this year. I hadn't seen in 2017. I don't think I saw a stronger ensemble film. And no, there aren't any grandiose performances in there over the top or anything like that. But everyone is just perfect for the character as written. Woody Harrelson was perfect. Frances McDormand's perfect. Even Sam Rockwell and again Caleb Landry Jones. I look at the film as being about how trauma and pain, tragedy and anger affect people and what they do with it. Yes, the focus really is on Frances McDormand's Mildred and the trauma of losing her daughter and the tragedy of losing her daughter and how that affects her. But, as Lisa was talking about Sam Rockwell's character, Dixon is the way he is because of the tragedy that was his upbringing. And the effects of that tragedy is Dixon in the present day and how he treats people and how he relates or does not relate to people, to society, to other ethnicities and people with other beliefs and things like that. And with Woody Harrelson's character, his final scenes are about how he's dealing with a particular tragedy of his affliction of his and his choices and how that tragedy or that affliction affects him, that drives him to that particular point. So you have all these different people, these different human beings reacting in human ways, and how with Frances McDormand's character, unfortunately, her tragedy, like Lisa mentioned, becomes all consuming. She's consumed by it, and I don't think she's able to, in a healthy way, find her way out of it. And the ending of that film, and I talked about it before, like seconds before that movie, cuts to black and goes to credits, like in my mind, I'm like, please end right here. Please end right here. And it does. And it sticks the landing. Brad, you use that phrase a lot sometimes when we talk about the ending of films. And like, I really felt like that movie sticks the landing. And I know from discussions with people at my job who've seen the film and other people online that, that ending is pretty divisive because it doesn't give you a finite answer. There's life outside the credits of that film for those characters. Their story doesn't end there, and I think a lot of people have problems with that. But that for me is one of the goes towards the argument. Well, some people say that they feel like you mentioned, Brad, like him giving the orange juice to Sam Rockwell's character, forgiving him or redeeming that character. But I don't think that that's the case. I think that's a case of a human being not stooping to the same level and not returning hatred to hatred. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you can be this way, you can view me in this way, you can inflict this upon me, but I don't have to give it back. Like, I'm going to break that cycle. Like, this is what Frances McDormand couldn't do to the people or to the, you know, in regards to the tragedy that that befalls her. It's like what Lisa was saying, like, you know, for forgiveness. Like, that character, Red, he could do that. Someone inflicted some violence and injustice towards him, and he took the higher road. He was the Martin Luther King, you know, he turned the other cheek. He wasn't going to continue a cycle of hate and violence. And I think that gesture is an example of people like that in the world, you know. And just like you have people like that in the world, unfortunately, there are people who are like Frances McDormand's character who aren't strong enough to break that cycle. And so, I think it's important to have a balance of that.
And that one character, well, her ex-husband's girlfriend says that,
the
you know,
babysitter.
about the babysitter that hates begets more hates, and they make a joke about her saying begets, but it's relevant to the story.
Well, that's the whole message.
It's the whole story.
That's the whole thing. And like you say, with that character, he's the one that decides to break that cycle. As far as being compassionate towards Dixon in that moment, as far as giving him the orange juice.
And like Lisa said, that doesn't mean that doesn't negate anything that Sam Rockwell, Dixon is, or that he's done, or that he will do. It just means it's not even about him at that point. It's still about Red. It's about Red, because in order to do, you realize how strong of a person you have to be to look your oppressor in the eye, your killer in the eye, or whatever, or, you know, someone who's wronged you, to say I forgive you, like, because you have to.
I treat, not even that I forgive you, but that I treat you like a person.
Right? Like that takes like an incredible amount of strength. That's the strength that separates the weakness from those who can't do it. Like, you know, and I think that's just, you know, that right there is just one profound element of this story.
How do you feel about the criticism that racism is used as a backdrop and as a motivating factor, but that there is not an African American character really in this film that this film puts at the center? You know, that there are African American characters, but they're all sidelined characters.
Well, so for me, I think that because the story really is centered around Mildred and what happens to her daughter, if there is racism involved in that particular inciting incident, then yes, maybe it should be focused on more. But racism is an element in regards to having us understand and fleshing out who Dixon is and who are some of the people surrounding her. And so I think the amount, like, so what was in the film, for me, I felt sufficiently enough. Like the fact that, you know, the guy that ends up coming in and firing Dixon, the fact that he's an African-American guy. So you have someone who is African-American. Yeah. He is not, you know, just him in his position. He is not what, like when Dixon thinks of an African-American, especially in regards to how he treats them. Like Lisa said, he doesn't view them as like humans and that he can treat them that way. But the fact that, you know, the guy who fires Dixon, you know, is opposite. He, you know, is not the embodiment of what Dixon has in mind when he thinks of colored people. And so I think that, you know, the fact that he is a person, a colored person of authority in a high position, you know, I think that for me, I think that feels just in that, you know, there is justice in the fact that Dixon is fired, and he's fired by an African American person who comes in and calls him on his bullshit and tells him to get the fuck out.
And the fact that officer is an outsider. Like it's the idea of, well, what if you took someone from another town and just dropped them in the middle of this mess? And that person will, of course, identify the problem and go, this is the problem, get the fuck out. You know?
because everyone else is complacent around Dixon.
Yeah.
Do you think you would feel differently about the film if it opened up with that attack that Dixon's character is infamous for? Like if the film opened with Dixon beating an African American man, and you saw that rather than it just be a plot point.
Well, no, I don't know that I feel different. And it's hard to say, obviously, because I haven't seen it. But I think it would serve. It would still serve to define who Dixon is. Like, I mean, whether I see it or not, the fact that I know that he's a racist, you know, the fact that he describes and black people the way he does. I mean, that's for me. I mean, that's all I need to know. Like, I just
that's kind of like a weird question too, because you would watch that scene and you go like, well, why isn't the movie about that? But then what if you started the movie with the rape and the murder of her daughter?
What if you did?
That would be horrible.
Because these really terrible things are go unseen.
Yeah.
But the repercussions. This is about the repercussions of those things.
Right. So I was going to say that because I don't even think they're rightfully so. You don't see them because you don't have to see them, because it really is, like Lisa said, it's about, and like how I said, it's about how people are affected by those tragedies and that trauma. So it's not the trauma; it's about the effects of it.
Yeah, and that's the blood in the water. That, you know, that's the powder. Yeah. That's the gunpowder, and then the 3 billboards is the match.
Yeah. So a powerful film that, you know, as tough as the subject matter is, ironically, like, it's one that I want to revisit. Just because of the impeccable performances and the characters and how they're written. Whether I like the characters or not, like, you know, I want to see this story again. And it just ended perfectly for me. So yeah, that's my number 2. Brian.
Oh, do we have a
yes.
listener?
One final one.
Well, yes, it's actually 2 final ones about the same movie.
All right.
But first up is Aaron Prescott, our buddy, one of our first guests in the Dork Cave.
That fucker.
Yep. At A Cool Hand Fluke on Twitter. He's the co-host of the Rest in Pictures podcast.
Yeah.
Check that out. It's been a while since there's been an episode, Aaron. I'm just saying, where's episode 5?
Yes.
So he picked Get Out. This was a great year for directors to truly shine with their own unique voice. Peele, Del Toro, Lowry, Baker, Gerwig, Amirpour, Wright, Aronofsky, as well as directors enhancing reboots, remakes, sequels, Gunn, Reeves, Villeneuve, Johnson. And then from our co-dork Billy Dass at WB Dass on Twitter. He also picked Get Out. He says it's tense, thrilling, and gorgeous. The scares are as effective on your second and third watch as they are on the first. If anything, the film becomes darker and more soul-chilling once the mystery is revealed. Beyond that, it offers a poignant yet simple message about racism in America. Jordan Peele's combination of social commentary and pure cinematic excellence elevates the film to not only the best of the year, but one that will be talked about as regularly in 5 or 6 decades as something like Night of the Living Dead is today.
All right.
So with that,
thank
Brian.
you for your input. Perfect segue into Brian's number 1.
Yes, it is. It's going to be a lot of Get Out talk, I guess, in this final go round, most likely, because my number 1 film of the year is Get Out. Surprise, surprise. This has been my number 1 film pretty much since the time I've seen this film in February and all year long, and no film has been able to kind of supplant that. But we talked about it extensively on the go-round when Lisa talked about it at her number 5. But there's just so many things that I've loved about this film. Again, Jordan Peele as a director, his directorial debut, I think this is probably goes down as probably one of the best directorial debuts when you talk about either Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs or John Singleton with Boys in the Hood. I mean, Sex, Lies, and Videotape with Steven Soderbergh. I mean, you talk about some of the directorial debuts of directors, this is definitely going to go down as one of the great ones. But the thing about this film is, like, just like how everybody has been saying, is how layered this film is. And every time I rewatch this film, I pick up something different. I love how he's able to really take social commentary and really wrap it into like this really genre film. I mean, it focuses on so many things like police brutality, casual racism, cultural appropriation, all these different things. And I love the opening of this film with that opening scene because it's so unsettling. And even watching from this film in the theater, like that first scene when you have Lakeith Stanfield trying to find his way out of this affluent white neighborhood, and I think that's something that's so identifiable for any black man. You know, it's just like, you know, people talk about like these ideas of being in just uncomfortable situations, and it's just like you would think, okay, you're in supposedly a safe neighborhood, but as a black man being in a neighborhood like that, the way Jordan Peele is able to really exemplify that uncomfortableness, that unsettlingness of being in that situation, like I completely understand what it feels like to be in that situation. And I definitely, when this film came out, I definitely just wanted to. I wish there was more black critics in like the movie.
Yeah,
the movie, because I definitely wanted to hear more opinions from black people and from the black community as far as like their opinions and their critiques of this film. Because to me, I think that's important. I mean, I go with Screen Junkies and Collider, and I don't want to hear people. I mean, it's cool, but hearing Dan Murrell's take on Get Out is not going to resonate the same way as me hearing, you know, somebody like a Jay Washington talk about this film.
I would point you to Narrative Do. I would give her, you know, heck, you can just follow her on Twitter immediately.
Okay.
She does some film writing, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And then Elvis Mitchell did a lot of great stuff with Get Out too.
Okay.
He did a great interview with Jordan Peele after the film was released.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just like the way he's able to really bring these metaphors. One thing I put in one of my top 10 scenes was the sunken place scene. That hypnosis scene, I think, is just absolutely fantastic. And you talked about his performance, Daniel Kaluuya's performance, Lisa, as far as like with his eyes and just the range that he has. And in that scene is so good. And just the idea of the sunken place. And what that means in the context of the film, and even what that means metaphorically, as you know, especially we talk about as black people being stuck in that sunken place where, you know, we just kind of be oblivious to what's going on around us and just kind of walk through life, just not knowing, like, you know, not being socially conscious about other things that's going on around us, and just kind of being driven by, you know, the status quo, the social status quo of what's being presented to us. I love how he puts all that stuff in there. And then even with Georgina and her performance in that one moment, when I didn't pick this up until like the second, third, fourth time I saw this in the bedroom, when she has that tear, it's like that's herself trying to break out of the sunken place. And when she's saying no, that's the grandmother pushing her back down. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so fucking brilliant. This movie just works on so many levels for me. I absolutely love this film. I could talk about this movie forever. Billy talked about it. Our other listeners talked about it. I think I got a feeling which your number one is, Brad. So I think I know both your number ones. I'm predicting everyone's except Darren's. But yeah, this movie just makes, oh man, it just, I don't know. I love it. I love it so much, and I want to see Jordan Peele get a lot of recognition for this film. Hopefully, around the award season time, this movie is recognized for the brilliance that it is, and it's definitely the best film of 2017.
All right, Lisa. Yeah,
Yes.
damn.
I know it.
Is it begin with an L?
No, it begins with a.
Okay, shh. Let me say it. My number one film is Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water.
Yes.
Of course it is.
I knew it.
Yes.
Finally.
So what do all of my top 4 films have in common?
Kissing.
Oh, that's
Music.
That's true.
A dance number.
They all have a dance number.
Amphibian men.
Oh, that's only in
Red
one.
Rocket!
Fish dicks.
Fish dicks. Shit, I want to eat some fish dicks.
That does sound delicious right now. I'm so hungry. We've been recording for so long.
Yes.
I'm sleepy beepy. I'm hungry. But I can't. I have just enough energy to share my love of The Shape of Water. Well, as I was watching this movie, I was going like, oh my God, this is one of my all-time favorite movies. I can tell right now as I was watching it. And then, of course, when the dance number happens, I'm just like tears and then just weeping to the end. It's just so beautiful. Sally Hawkins' performance as Elsa. The fact that her condition makes her an observer, just out of necessity, really, because she is a listener. She is mute. She can't speak. So she is a listener. And she spends the opening movie as a sounding board, really, for Richard Jenkins, Giles, to hear about his infatuation with the Pie Man, for Octavia Spencer and Zelda, about her home life. And she is just kind of absorbing information about people, and she doesn't get listened to a whole lot. So when she comes in contact with the Fishman, and they start connecting, she feels observed for the first time. He watches her as she watches him, and that is a level of communication that she hasn't felt before, where they're just kind of meeting on this even playing field. And then when it is time for her to be heard, she knows how to speak right to people's hearts because she knows them so well. And the fact that the people that she connects to most, her closest friends, also identify with this outsider nature that she has, because Giles is a closeted gay man in the 60s, and he can't really open up about it. And he's also a misunderstood artist, and he has a hard time, he has this idealized idea of what life should be from all of these movies, and it reflects in his paintings, and then his paintings are rejected. It's like his worldview is being rejected. It's like he is being rejected. And then Zelda being an African-American woman, and also, going home and her husband not appreciating her or listening to her. So Elsa uses this common ground to help these people realize the person that the Fishman is. And Brad talked about how, like, we don't really know if the Fishman feels the same way about Elsa. But, I just kind of believe her. I believe that she understands him, because her argument convinces me, because everybody goes, I'm an outsider. There are things about me that no one will understand, because we're all in our own fishbowl in our heads, just looking out and observing the world. And I think that this movie kind of finds the commonality of otherness in all of us by connecting to someone who could not be more other, this fish god guy. So I think that, like, to me, like, I love songs about singing. I love movies about singing. The fact that she has this passion for musical theater, musical television, the fact that she is a closet dancer, she likes to express herself in that physical way. She's a little shy about it, but it's just kind of part of who she is. And when she finally, the true expression of her heart is in song. And when that musical number happens and she's singing, in her heart and in her mind. It just moves me so profoundly. So, and just visually stunning. And, you know, I love a slippery man. We've had that conversation already. The man who fell to earth, I found very alluring. And the idea of slipping around.
Oh, okay.
Is sexy to me.
Yeah.
So Abe Sapien is my type of guy. This fish man is my type of gentleman. He seems to have an exoskeleton. That's exciting. So yes. So I love this movie. I can't wait to watch it again. My words about it as I was coming out of the film was like, it's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. It's perfect. And that's still how I feel. And so I'm going to go to sleep now. So I'll never find out what your number one is, Brad, because I have some Z's to catch.
She's sleepy, beep, beep.
I am.
All right, B.
Oh, and Michael Stuhlbarg. He's my best friend.
Oh,
Whenever
yeah.
I see him on screen, I'm like, hooray! And then in this movie, you're like, oh, is he going to be a villain? But he's not, because he's your friend. He's a villain in other films. We'll talk about it later. But I love him, and I think he has such a friendly, open face.
He's a good dude in every movie he appeared in this year. Yeah. This, Call Me By Your Name, and The Post. Yeah. The Post, maybe not so much. He's not a terrible dude in The Post. No.
I think that's what I was thinking of when I was like, maybe not the best guy, but like I don't know, I love him. I love him.
All right,
Michael Stuhlbarg.
Lisa scared the shit out of me when she woke up just now. All right,
and Doug Jones.
Brad.
Richard Jenkins is my friend. Michael Shannon is not my friend. He's got a scary
that
face.
motherfucker's crazy.
He's got a scary face and his oozy fingers. Oh my god! The best part about watching this film the second time is not being afraid of his fingers, because I just did not know where that shit was going. But now I know that they're now that I know, I feel much better. Yeah. I feel like I can watch it now. Those so nasty.
That's gross.
This is how bad my emetophobia is. I was so relieved that the worst that was going to happen was that he pulled his fingers off. I'm so glad that it didn't make him sick.
It would have made me sick. That's gross.
That is super gross and pussy.
Brad,
Smelly.
your obvious number one.
My number one is Get Out.
Yes.
Nice.
I love the first time I loved the film the first time I saw it. It's this scary horror film that highlights our failings as a society. It's a reflection of our shame, our ugliness, our contemptible fear of those that we deem different or inferior. But after that first viewing, I didn't think it would rank this high on my list. I think it's because when you watch a movie in February, you just don't expect it to be your favorite film of the year.
Yeah, same here.
But I rewatched Get Out more than any other movie in 2017.
Okay.
And with each subsequent viewing, the film grew in my mind to a point of perfection. Yes, it's a film of the moment, but I know that it'll be a film of our future. These are forever relevant ideas because we are a human race.
Yeah.
And Jordan Peele just directs the hell out of this movie, and it is a perfect extension of what he was doing in Key and Peele.
Yeah.
When you look at the commentary that he was bringing to that show, but he was bringing character to that show. He was bringing heart to that show. He was bringing pain to that show. In a lot of ways, Get Out reminds me of John Landis's An American Werewolf in London, and how that film balances comedy and horror and drama perfectly and unnervingly. I think when people first watch Get Out, first watch American Werewolf in London, they're not sure. They're the Golden Globes, right? They're like, is it a comedy? Is it a drama? I mean, but at the end of the day, like American Werewolf, Get Out is a horror film, and it is a serious picture, and it's filled with masterful performances from every single person on that cast. Absolutely top tier. Daniel Kaluuya is phenomenal. He goes from this Jesus Christ, white people are crazy, trapped party that he's experiencing at his girlfriend's house, to being utterly heartbroken and defeated, to Avenger, and the backstory about his mother is it's torturous, but the way it's laid out from the moment that Deer is hit at the beginning of the film, and how you on rewatch, how you see that past pain guide his reasoning in interacting with this Stepford wife situation, this Twilight Zone horror that he is experiencing. Allison Williams, as Lisa was saying, like the turn in her character from Rose to Roro is just so horrendous and gross. That scene where she's eating cereal and drinking milk with the black straw and scrolling through Google is the ickiest and like most punchable moment. Like you want to murder her.
I know, just the bowl of cereal, like keeping the whites and the colors separate.
Your blood's boiling.
Oh my God!
Bradley Whitford, Catherine Keener, the best of the worst, and how it's skewering this liberal racism. We think we've progressed because we voted for Obama, and that's what Jordan Peele talks about. Is where this film came from is, oh, well, racism's over. We have Obama in the White House, and like what bullshit that is. And hello, fucking Trump's elected. Obviously, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's those mini roles in the film. It's Lakeith Stanfield as Andre / Logan. Is it Logan? What's his?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can't.
Yes.
Yeah. That transformation is terrifying, totally gut wrenching, sad as fuck. But Betty Gabriel's Georgina, and that scene you were talking about, Brian, the no. It's scary the first time you watch it. You're like, what the fuck is happening in this movie?
Yeah.
But on your rewatches, it is the most heartbreaking moment in the movie. It's so achingly sad.
So expertly acted.
And so expertly acted. I mean, Betty Gabriel, if that scene doesn't work, the film doesn't work.
And Walter, the groundskeeper. So
awesome. And Laurel Howard,
yeah.
As TSA motherfucking Williams, like he's comic relief at times. Yeah. He's the hero at times. Watching him piece it all together, acting as a warning, acting as the audience, acting terrified when he has that conversation with Roro.
Yeah.
That scene is masterful.
Yeah.
And the ending, or the cop car showing up. We've been trained. We see that cop car, and the year we've been having 2016 was when that cop car shows up. And I remember when we first reviewed this, I said, is the more honest ending cops actually showing up and killing Daniel Kaluuya? Is that the more honest ending? But in reality, the head fake taking us to that point where we all expect Daniel Kaluuya to be killed by the cops, that head fake and that realization of us assuming that was what's going to happen is the most horrifying moment of the entire film.
Yeah, he almost puts up a mirror to us, the audience.
Our reaction to that is our disgrace as an American society.
Yeah.
And I am thrilled that Rod takes Chris away and fucking Rose dies alone on the side of the road. But you watch Chris's expressions in the car as they drive away. Yeah. That dude is changed.
Yes.
It's not a happy ending. I just think there's so much going on in Get Out, and upon rewatching it twice, yesterday and today, it just became clear to me that actually this was my favorite film of the year.
Yeah.
Awesome. And it's the film that I'm going to continue to rewatch more than any other movie this year, because as awful as it is, it's also a thrill to watch.
It is. And it works on so many different levels. Like it could be uncomfortable to watch as well, but you could just watch it, like you say, as just this thriller. And I think it just works on so many different levels in that way.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Jordan Peele does next, but I'm with him. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Like, how much better can you be?
And that's a downfall of just coming out so great on your first time out.
And I love the idea of him doing Twilight Zone. Producing this TV show. I think it's such a natural, obvious idea when you finish watching Get Out that would be something that he would attach himself to.
Now, I know he was attached to the Black Klansman, but I thought he was directing that, but Spike Lee's directing it. He's producing it. That's
going to be a really interesting movie.
Yeah,
we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
And he was attached for a hot minute to Akira. I certainly don't want him doing that. I want him to be doing his own scripts.
Me too.
But how many Get Out scripts do you have in you?
I don't know. He said he has ideas for other social thrillers that still live within the same world. So.
So more power to him. I'm excited to see what he produces.
It's great.
Well, that's almost like asking, man, that was a great Key and Peele sketch that you wrote. How many of those do you have in you? He has tons of creativity and he has tons to say, I think, and he's shown that in the early days of that show.
Yeah, he's going to make Hype Man the movie, Lisa.
Oh, no.
So sad.
What you doing me for?
Okay, if he puts a dance number in it, I'm in.
All right. Now it's time for the moment of truth. My number one film of 2017. Any takers?
Dude, I don't know. I straight up...
You're an enigma.
No, I don't know.
You are the Tommy Wiseau of the ITMODcast.
Yes. So this one, I when I first saw this film, I wasn't expecting it to be my number one, but the longer it sat with me,
I
the
know.
more I went back and I rewatched it.
You're so good at this. You are like the Elsa. You're observing, you're listening, and now you see to our hearts.
Jesus Christ, we just talked about this.
Yeah, I went back and rewatched it a few times, and I most recently rewatched it again last night.
Yeah,
and. So, Brian, tell the people what my number one movie of 2017 is.
His number one movie is Cell Block and...
you just fucked it all. Never mind.
Brawl and Cell Block 99.
I've been calling Eliza Elsa. Why didn't anybody correct me? Because you guys didn't know.
I'm afraid of you, Lisa.
It's because I look at IMDb and
Eliza
it has
Elsa? What are you talking about?
because I was calling her Elsa because it's got an S in it.
Who are you talking about?
Shape of Water.
I only know actors' names.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, I was thinking Cell Block, but Brawl and Cell Block 99.
Yeah, so that's my number.
That's your number one. All right,
that's awesome.
That's my number one. So I guess it started with the initial screening at Fantastic Fest. That screening is when you go to Fantastic Fest or you come from Fantastic Fest and you tell other people about Fantastic Fest and you want to get them excited and you want them to come. You talk about screenings like that. I come back and I say, oh man, I saw Split and the screening of that and the audience's reaction was fucking nuts. You got to come to Fantastic Fest. And, Brawl and Cell Block 99, that screening was perfect. It's the reason, like Brad said, it's the reason why he came back. He had already seen the movie with the critics, but that's why he came back to watch it again with us. And, being a fan of S. Craig Zahler's Bone Tomahawk, I was automatically looking forward to the next thing that he was doing when Brawl and Cell Block 99 got announced and that he was doing that with Vince Vaughn. I was curious. At that point, I was just like, all right, it's going to be intense. I don't know what it's going to be. It's probably going to be violent, and Vince Vaughn's going to be interesting in it. So then, I didn't watch any trailers prior to it, and I was
same.
And it wasn't even like, oh, I'm actively avoiding it. I just didn't get around to watching the trailer for it. So, not knowing what that movie was and how it unfolded, from the opening of that film, and the the realization that his wife is cheating on him, and him going Street Fighter on the car, but then like the movie does its first subverting of expectations in that conversation when he says, go in the house. I'm like, oh shit, he just tore his car up. Now he's going to go in there, either punch a hole in the wall or punch a hole in her face. But that conversation doesn't go the way that I expected. He has a civilized conversation with her. And at the end of that conversation, they're at a place where they're going to make this work. And right at that point, I was sold on the film. And then the way that story unfolds, it on your initial watch, and people say it's a slow movie and it takes time. I could see that on your first watch, but I guarantee
I think that's anticipation fucking with them.
It's that, but also go back and watch it a second time, and I think you'll notice that once shit goes tits up on that dock and he gets arrested, the movie kind of takes off. Actually, like, no, what you mentioned, Brad. Because he gets locked up.
That's certainly interesting. And that first prison and his relationship with his guard is interesting to watch. It's fascinating how that plays out.
And you're thinking, well, not even the guard first, but the guy who's taking him around, that's giving him the tour. You're like, oh man, this is going to be a great character that we're going to be with. Nah, he's just a great character that's in and out. That guard, okay, great character that's in and out. But from the moment that Udo Kier sits down and lays out, the ultimatum, either you kill this guy in cell block 99, or we have your wife kidnapped and we're gonna kill her and the baby.
The abortionist.
From that moment on, the movie just goes. Like, he doesn't waste any time. There's an efficiency in the storytelling, but also in Bradley. Because he's racing against the clock. He doesn't want to waste time and risk something happening to his unborn child or his wife. So he leaves out of that meeting with Udo Kier. He gets in that first fight, which the fight scenes in this movie really stand out to me in a day and age where I'm a huge fan of the raid films. I love where they're elevating the art form too. But there was something to be said about S. Craig Zoller's choice to go with this more grounded and realistic approach to the fighting. And I told Brian, I said that, the fighting is so true to the character of Bradley Thomas in that, he is so composed, not when he's fighting, but whenever he's talking to someone, whenever he's going through the system, when he's sitting opposite of the police officer right before the hearing, when he's at the hearing, he's getting that bad news. Bradley's always composed. Granted, there are emotions underneath the surface. Even after he bashes the car, he composes himself and he goes and he has that conversation, that civilized conversation. So he's always composed and calculated. When he squares up to fight, it's the same way. Like he squares up. He doesn't throw the first punch. He allows the guy to throw the punch so he can calculate how he's going to block and then counter. And so that stood out to me on a rewatch. That it isn't just a stylistic choice to have it it being like really stiff. To me, it just speaks to it's an extension of Bradley Thomas, which I think is brilliant. Is brilliant. I mean, you look at someone like I said this to Brian. You look at someone like Iko and the Raid. Well, he's the quiet one in the SWAT team. Like, he's really to himself or whatever, and he's kind of scared. But when he fights, like he's different. It's almost like a different person. Well, when Bradley fights, he's just the same. Like, he's just as composed. So I thought that was really well thought out, and I thought that was a really cool layer. But anyway, he gets into that first fight. They transition him to Red Leaf, and once he gets the red leaf, we're introduced to Don Johnson in a really awesome, like weird, like role as the warden there. He gets into his cell, and then as soon as he gets to his cell, he goes out to the yard, gets in that second fight on the yard to get transitioned to cell block 99. He gets to cell block 99. As soon as he puts him in that cell, he starts asking about the guy he's supposed to kill. The guards come in, take him to that guy. He gets shocked, electrocuted, beat up, sent back to his cell. When he goes back to his cell, he puts the shoe pads in his belt, and then the guards come back, take him out to fuck with him, and then that's when he gets the drop on those guys, put them in there, and he goes in there for the brawl in cell block 99. Like, the movie just goes. Like, it doesn't let up once Udo Kier sits down. And I really found myself entranced by that and exhilarated. But then, like, that scene, it was funny. The first time I watched it, I didn't realize that, there's a guy that I want you to kill in cell block 99. If you kill him, then we'll let your wife and your kid go. I didn't realize that was all a ruse just to get him in front of the guy that wanted to pay him back for screwing up that deal on the docks.
Right.
I didn't realize that till like the second to the watch the other night. But I love that, and I love the guy so ignorant and he's crawling on the ground saying if you hurt me they're gonna kill your wife, and he breaks this guy's legs, and then it doesn't even end right there. Like, he drags him back out, and he still has to contend with Don Johnson. But the phone call, so the reason why this is my number one, outside of all those things, and there's tons more about this film that I could talk about, but I'm not going to because we're pushing almost 3 hours. But I want to say, like, the emotional, like, so with a character like this, was talked about earlier, but there's no real good guys or bad guys. I mean, he's a bad guy, but based on his own moral compass, which he does have, in the eyes of him and his wife, he's doing things for the reason he believes is true. And, that phone call that he has at the end with his wife, and, that moment that she says, do you want to talk to her? And Vince Vaughn's performance at that moment when he tries to hold back being choked up, he's trying to keep himself composed at that point, but he's also keeping himself composed when she's like, what's going on? Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's all right. Don't worry about it. Can I come up there and see you? I'm going to work on that. I'll work that out, and we'll get you squared away. Maintaining composure still to the very end, so she doesn't get stressed out. She's pregnant. He doesn't want his wife worried and everything like that. Again, I just thought that was, that part of his character, something that's established from the opening throughout the film, through the fighting, but even up until this last moments in this conversation. I just felt that just added something extra to that character, that, something that a character that I was not expecting performance-wise from Vince Vaughn. I mean, you talked at length about it, about this transformation, and Lisa talked about how she forgot that, there was a weddings crasher Vince Vaughn and a swingers Vince Vaughn, and she can't be faulted for that, because he is such an imposing but yet complex individual, in that you have this big stature, but he's almost an enigma, because you can't read him, because he's quiet. He doesn't start shit or bark loud, but when it's time to fight, he's more than capable. But even then, he still doesn't lose his cool. And that emotional conversation he has with his daughter, that right there destroyed me, because like hours before I watched the movie, I found a bunch of old videos on Facebook from an old account, and I just started liking them and watching them and putting them up on the Disco page, and from when Sia was a baby, and my just little interactions, whether I was in the bath with her or just little small moments, and like seeing that moment with him, knowing that he's never going to have that, and he's never going to have that with his daughter, but him just doing whatever he could for the safety of his daughter and his wife. Like, I just thought, I don't know, like it just really hit me. And then the way that movie ends, like on the last shot, like I wasn't expecting it. I told Brian, like, okay, when he hung the phone up, I was like, all right, he's killed a few people, so he's never going to see her again, but they may just throw him in the hole for like, give him life in prison. So he's screwed in that way. But when what happens to him, like, I was genuinely shocked. And then the fact that that's the last shot in the movie before the credits roll, like, floored me. So, I don't know, like, I haven't stopped thinking about that film since I've seen it. I haven't stopped talking about it. I haven't stopped trying to get other people to watch it. And since I've bought it on 4K Blu-ray, which looks amazing, by the way. I don't know. It's just stuck with me because of how atypical it is for, I guess, I don't even know if it's an action picture because it is so much more than that. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just a great friggin' movie. It's a great film. And I don't know. It's one I see myself rewatching constantly and just showing people. It's one of those movies where you got to watch this. You have to watch this. Yeah. And then we can talk about it.
And the fact that S. Craig Zoller writes the songs that the OJs perform in that film.
Yeah. Yeah. The music, the feel, like you mentioned earlier, like the rollback feel of, it's genes, it's exploitation genes that sewn into the DNA of the film, like totally just enhance it. And I don't know, like I was just floored, like rewatching that film last night. I was just floored by it all over again, like I saw it for the first time. And yeah, I spent like 2 minutes like freeze framing like that final shot, like going frame by frame, watching that practical effect. Oh shit, its eye is gone. Oh shit, it went in his eye and came out of his head. What the fuck? So I don't know. Yeah, good headshot, good head explosion. Anyway, that's my number one film of 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, hit us up at ITMODcast on social media. If you were not some of the few that we got to read out on the podcast, you can hit us up on social media and let us know what your favorite film or what your top 10 films were. Before we go, we got something else.
We got one last listener. It's Jesse.
A favorite listener.
That's right. At Gojira_lives on Twitter. And he says, I can't wait to hear your top films of 2017.
Well, you just did it. Yep. Boom, show over.
But there was a lot of good TV in 2017.
Yes, sir.
What were some of your favorites? Game of Thrones, Jean-Claude Van Johnson, Black Mirror, Stranger Things 2, Insecure. So real quick.
Turtle Dork.
For me, I did my rediscover of Game of Thrones by binging all the shows, and then season 7 was just amazing. But the real discovery for me was Insecure on HBO. I highly recommend. You talk about just wanting people to watch something. I highly recommend everybody check out that show. It is amazing, and I am in love with everybody in that cast, from Yvonne Orji to Issa Rae. To Jay Lewis, everybody that's on that show is just absolutely amazing. I cannot wait for season 3. So Insecure is my gem discovery.
Wife Dork.
My favorite TV discovery. Brad and I don't watch a lot of television, actually. I like to rewatch my faves every year, but a new fave perhaps is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah,
so wonderful. The creator is Amy Sherman Palladino, co-creator of The Gilmore Girls. And this is a story about a woman who is in the 60s and her husband leaves her and she discovers a passion for stand-up comedy. It's hilarious. It's adorable. I think Rachel Brosnahan
sure
is so cute and funny and just really wonderful, and I cannot wait until the next season. And also Aziz Ansari's Master of None season 2, also great.
That's right. Brad.
Star Trek Discovery. It's the only show I'm watching. It's great.
Is the season over?
The mid-season finale happened, and guess what happens tonight? It returns.
So how many episodes were in the mid-season?
9?
So
8.
Probably going to do about
8 or 9. I think 16 is the number. Anyway, I'm loving it. If you're one of those Trekkies that's not loving it, you're probably like one of those assholes that didn't like The Last Jedi, and go fuck yourself.
Oh, wow. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, of course, the obvious answer would be Game of Thrones. We had an amazing season finale. By the way, coming soon, Turtle Dork and I have started our odyssey on the rewatch of that series from season 1, episode 1. So what we're doing is just like we did with the what is it, a review or the watching of the season finale. Reaction video for that. So we're doing one for each episode of Game of Thrones to tide us over to 2019. Unfortunately, is when we have to wait for the return for the final season. But in the meantime, to give us Game of Thrones fans something to do to keep us busy, we'll be dropping those periodically. So be on the lookout for that. Now, having said that, my discovery for TV this in 2017 is Jean-Claude Van Johnson, the Amazon series starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. This show was freaking hilarious. I caught the pilot earlier in the year. It may have been at the end of last year. And since then, I was dying to see if it was going to get picked up. And it did. And it got released. A very short first season. I want to say 6 or 9 episodes.
6. And
they're only 30 minutes long. So they're not long. But you would want them to be longer because they're so good. They're so good. Like it's a shame because it's gonna, for me, it just makes me wish, like, damn, where was this Jean-Claude Van Damme like years ago? Like, because this is what he should have been doing, like movies like this or shows like this, because he is great. Like, he has a range that he taps into as far as acting goes that I found stupefying. Like, I just did not know he had this in him. And I'd seen JCVD, which is this is sort of an extension of JCVD, like him, real world Jean-Claude Van Damme taking a look at, and in this case skewering like his tropes and the splits and the movies, Time Cops, like all those things play a part in this show. But his range from drama to comedy is just fantastic. Like, it is so good. People are sleeping on this show. Like, I'm telling you, it's a really good show. It's funny. Felicia Rashad, Claire Huxtable is amazing in it. And Biagio from Kings of Summer is a beast in it.
Biagio. Yes.
So please do yourself a favor. They're only 30 minutes long. The first season is like 6 or 7 episodes. Check it out. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening, everyone. Thank you all for being with us for 2017. If you're just joining ITMOD, welcome to the family. And we hope to we got a lot in store for you for 2018. Coming soon will be our most anticipated of this year. I think we do that traditionally. Yeah. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. Find Turtle Dork at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped.
Hey, tell him about the MCU thing you're doing. This is exciting.
Oh, well,
me too.
For Film School Rejects,
Yay.
I am building up for the release of Avengers Infinity War with an article a week detailing film by film. So this past week I wrote about Iron Man. And this
is a good article about it.
Thank you. I'm pretty proud of it. I'm pretty excited about it. And I'm really curious what I'm going to write about for the Incredible Hulk this week. So we'll see. But yeah, in chronological order from release, I'm tackling each movie for the next 17 weeks until Infinity War hits.
Yes, I suggest you read along with his articles, but also watch those movies. If you watch one MCU movie a week leading up to, they'll all take you up to the release of Infinity War. So join us on this endeavor. I will be doing the same. I am Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful 2018. And until next time.